Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is story about what if Naruto becomes God of Shinobi Part 1. Before I start, please do support for more amazing content and comments for Part 2. Do consider to subscribe my channel and share my video to your friends and check out the description as well. Let's start the video. I found myself standing on water in what looked like a sewer. And I mean exactly that. I was literally standing on top of the water instead of in the water, and my surroundings look like what I would expect from a sewer. Not that I'm all that familiar with one. I took a moment to look around. It looked like a hallway in the sense that there was only one path here. Forward or backward. There was nothing but darkness in one direction, and in the other there was a faint light. An exit maybe? Obviously, I headed towards the light. That darkness back there looked a little too foreboding. I went to take a step and then... Memories. 4-in-1s? A village where people used the rooftops like some type of highway. 4 huge heads carved out of stone. Growing up in an orphanage, and then a small apartment. Going to the academy to be a ninja. Graduating. Forming a team. Going on missions. A snake. An invasion. Grandfather figure dying. Learning a technique. Returning with a new leader. A teammate going rogue. Chasing after him. A hand through my chest. Darkness. I come back to find myself on my knees. Still on top of the water, of course. And the sewer is still there. I get back onto my feet and look around again, but with a new perspective this time. I know where I am now. And I have a pretty good idea where that light is coming from. It's definitely not God. And I'm really glad this is a Mindscape instead of a real sewer. Means that getting out of here is possible. But that would only be the start of my problems, wouldn't it? If those memories are correct, then I am now in the body of Naruto Uzumaki. The main character in an anime I used to watch about a boy living in a world where superhuman ninjas exist. Long story short, some 700 episodes if you count the unimportant stuff. It's a dangerous setting where the weak are subjugated to the whims of the strong. Where with enough power or dedication, an individual can become a world-ending threat. The stakes just kept increasing as the story went on, from walking on water and spitting fireballs to launching attacks that can destroy cities. And now I'm in the thick of things as the lead. Did I mention that I personally don't like Naruto? Oh, I don't hate him. As a reserved individual, I don't think I could ever feel that emotional over a fictional character, but his character bugged me. Idiotic, loud, unskilled, bad taste in females, and just a bunch of other things. I do understand he was made to appeal to a broad audience, and that the plot required certain things, but I still think he didn't live up to his full potential. Which is why I feel that this situation is a big case of karma. I always said that I could do better, and now here I am. Some being out there felt that I should put my money where my mouth is. And I have no choice except to do so because this is my life at stake here. Those memories were simply too vivid, if lacking in emotional attachment, to be passed off as my imagination going wild. No, I'm moving forward with the assumption that this whole transmigration deal is legitimate, and doing anything against my personal well-being is a big no-no. That also means following the original script is not a good idea. Aspiring to become Hokage while making friends everywhere I go is not a bad way to live, it's just not the best way to ensure I continue living. I can't limit my rate of progression to match the blonde. Too many events came about only because Naruto was who he was and because the creators wanted such to happen. I know very well I lack absurd levels of charisma and willpower, so my path has to reflect my own strengths. I want to serve, no, thrive, in this insane world. So there, goal established. How do I make it happen? Power. How do I get that? Training and using what I have at my disposal. What do I have? Uzumaki bloodline, which includes large chakra pools, longevity, and vitality. I'm also the container for a tailed beast, meaning more chakra, more vitality, and whatever unique traits it provides. I have shadow clones. Clones of me that retain memories when they disperse. An extremely useful tool which I plan to take advantage of. My outside knowledge is perhaps my greatest advantage. I can use that to guide my training and decision making. All that is just me personally. I have access to resources like the library, other friendly ninjas, training grounds, and enemies in the future to test myself against. So even though I likely lost my plot armor, I have other things to rely on. Not going to say my goal is guaranteed, but it is also not impossible. Just have to put the effort in and not be afraid to get my hands dirty. If idiot Naruto could become one of the strongest in the anime, then I will aim for even better. I'll become the best in everything I can be. I'll get the power I need to live my own life. Or die trying. Eventually I decided that I had stalled enough. Even though I probably could, I shouldn't stand here and wait until I regain consciousness. Who knows when I will be good enough at meditation to visit with Kurama again. Have to use this opportunity. As I trot along towards the light, I consider what I should say to him. I'm thinking the truth is the best option. Don't want to get caught lying. And he could become my partner someday. It is for the best that we are on the same wavelength going forward. Finally got to the end of the hallway. It leads into a huge chamber where the faint light was coming from. At one end is the gate with the seal on it. The light reaches into the jail somewhat but doesn't illuminate the whole thing. Pretty sure Kurama is in the darkness back there. I head to where I think a safe distance is and sit down. On top of the water. Not sure how much time passes before I hear a voice. He's not shouting, but it is still powerful. So, my jailer decides to grace me with his presence. I won't lie and say that I don't feel some fear. You are not what I expected. Makes sense that he noticed. I do not consider myself to be Naruto, so my appearance reflects that in this mindscape. I still look like an African-American male in his early 20s, and my clothes no doubt would look strange in this world too. I'm guessing that as time goes on and I get familiar with this body, I might start to think of it as mine, meaning my internal image will resemble my physical one. Or maybe it will never change. Don't have any experience with these type of situations. Hello, Kurama? Going with the plan of showing that I know more than I should. How do you know that name? Volume rose, but not quite a shout yet. He comes forward where I can see him. Glowing red eyes are what I see first. The rest of the head and body follow. A reddish-orange fox with 9 tails moving behind it. The ears look like that of a rabbit, and he has human-like hands attached to his front legs. Of course, he is also huge. He towers over me by a large margin. Don't know how big he is, but I think that his eyes are the size of a regular adult's body. With that last question, his aura started to press down on me. I don't have words to describe it, but it feels like gravity increased and my fight or flight instinct activated. If I had been standing, I probably would have been shaking and maybe collapsed. This is why I sat down to have this conversation. Even then, I have to take a few quick breaths and stabilize myself before I can respond. As you probably guessed, I am not Naruto. The best explanation is that I'm a dimensional traveler who happened to end up in this body. In my previous world, we had methods to look into various worlds. This one was one of many. Answering his question, and probably the following one. Another world, he mused. I know that there are other worlds out there. Father's mother was not from this one. But to think another visitor would end up before me, in my container's body no less. He didn't appear to be talking to me, more like thinking out loud, so I didn't say anything. He twitched, refocusing on me. What exactly have you seen of this world? And why are you in this body? Quite a bit, actually. The next while was spent relating what I had seen and remembered from the anime. The Akatsuki, Obito, 4th Shinobi War, Madara, Kagaya, Black Zetsu. All the important stuff. I also told him how I didn't know how I came to be here, but that I didn't intend to die anytime soon. I have already given some thought to how I will take care of these problems, but I would like to have you as a partner. So, you desire my power as well? I won't lie and say no. You and I working together would put us in a position to avoid some of the worst events that might come about. I admit. And beyond that, I need someone to talk to candidly. You just heard my story of where I come from and what this world meant to me, and although you may not fully believe me just yet, it has some crazy implications. That goes without saying. He stared. Exactly. All these people around me, Naruto's friends and such, I can't tell them this. Well, I could, but the consequences could be grave. Maybe deadly if they learn I'm not him. I really don't want to test just how strong this body's bonds are with a bunch of trained killers. So seeing how I would be hard-pressed to keep this from you, I would like to have you as a willing partner. Someone to talk to and strategize with. Someone with whom I could put the mask aside. So what do you say? Kurama just looks at me for a moment before speaking. You are correct, your story is quite overwhelming. I need time to reflect. He turned around to go back to the shadows of the cell. I heard his voice one last time before he fully disappeared. I'll summon you when I have decided. I remained sitting there. It wasn't a yes, but it also wasn't a no. I probably wouldn't have had an immediate response either. Back to planning for the future then. Nothing else to do down here. I wonder what happened to bring me here. Really hope my family doesn't suffer over my disappearance. Standing across from the Hokage's desk, I can't help but reflect over the past 6 weeks. I regained consciousness in a hospital room, as expected. The nurses did some last checkups on me and told me that I would be allowed to leave the next day. Before leaving, I went in to visit the other genin that had went on the mission. They were part of the small group that Naruto had considered friends, so appearances had to be kept. Maybe one day I would develop an actual friendship with them. It was during those visits that Jiraiya found me and we went up to the roof to talk. After inquiries about how I was coping with Sasuke's betrayal, he informed me about the training trip and that we would leave the village in a little over a month. He kept sending me worried looks, but he didn't say what was on his mind. That he was worried about how quiet I was compared to the usual. Since he didn't bring it up, I didn't say anything either, let him come to his own conclusions. That was probably the best time for me to have been inserted into the script. Being born as Naruto and actually living in a hostile village would not have been fun for multiple reasons. I'm not an expert on the topic, but having the mind of an adult in the body of a baby sounds like torture. Even more so when the population doesn't like you. I'm also sure that I would not have been able to play the role of a normal orphan either. Would have raised a lot of eyebrows. Even coming in at another point would not have been preferable. I still would have needed an explanation for my shift away from canon Naruto. The event with Mizuki may have counted, but it would not have been enough. Not enough time and not enough trauma. And I also would have had to go through some dangerous moments before I even gained someone like Jiraiya to actually help me get stronger. But now though, I have a lot more freedom. Because I just went through a traumatic experience, I can use that to my advantage. I don't have to act like the loud and excitable child that Naruto was, and that's fine because people will not blame me for it. They'd see a sad child recovering from his best friend abandoning him for another traitor. I could then study and train in ways Naruto didn't, and they will just see it as an effort on his part to better himself and bring back Sasuke. A lot of differences in behavior will be justified without me having to say anything. Furthermore, this training trip coming up will provide even more room for me to change because I will be away from people who knew the old Naruto. I won't have to keep pretending upon my return. The only person who might notice is Jiraiya, who I'm not too concerned about because he had barely interacted with me pre-insertion. I just need to make those changes somewhat gradually. So yes, this is a good time to be me. Once the Toad Sage left me alone, I started the plan that I had concocted while in my Mindscape. Forming the proper hand seal, I performed my first jutsu in this world. The shadow clone technique. It was weird seeing so many Narutos standing around me. So much orange. But I overcame the horror. They knew the plan, but because I made so many, it fell onto me to split them into groups. 5 were sent to the library to learn about chakra theory and application, anatomy and physiology, and history. Only 5 were sent because I didn't want an overload of pure information assaulting my brain when they dispersed. Those 5 were hinged into random people just to be safe. 30 clones were sent to Training Ground 3 to work on chakra control. They would combine water walking with leaf sticking in order to get the most out of those exercises. One final clone was tasked with finding out where Lee got his weights from and purchasing a set. With the groups assigned, the set of 30 followed me to the training ground while the others went about. By the time I finished warming up, the clone with the weights arrived. I was expecting something like the ones I saw in canon, but was pleasantly surprised instead. The set he bought consisted of a belt with 2 seals on it that went around the midsection. The instructions that came with it said that sending a pulse of chakra directly into one seal increased the weight on the whole body by 1 increment. Sending chakra into the other seal undid all the weight. The first level was approximately 15 kg, and each increase raised the weight by another 15. Doing the math, once I reached the last level, 10, then I would be carrying an extra 150 kg. I was intrigued by the idea but also not looking forward to getting there. The instructions also made it clear that training without the use of chakra would provide the best results. It made sense, work on the base body and all physical enhancement techniques would see marked improvement. After putting the belt on, I got started. Sprinting until I dropped, variations of push-ups and sit-ups, squats, lunges, planks. I pushed the famous Uzumaki stamina to the limit. Needless to say, I could feel every bit of those extra 15 kilos before I called it quits for that day. Periodically I would create a different set of 30 clones when all the ones doing chakra control exercises ran out of chakra and dispersed. The clones in the library also dispersed sometime that afternoon after open hours passed. They were nice enough to come find and warn me before they sent over their memories. The sensation of receiving memories felt odd but not uncomfortable. I suddenly knew stuff that I didn't have to waste time learning. Truly, shadow clones are the best. Except for the weekends during which I rested, the time I had before leaving was spent in that fashion. Wake up. Eat breakfast. 5 clones to the library. 30 on control. Spend the morning working on accuracy with kunai and shuriken and then physical workout. Have lunch. Practice taijutsu based from academy books and memories. Practice ninjutsu and absorb memories from the library clones. Dinner. Watch television and relax. Meditate while lying in bed. The weekends were used to acclimate and keep up appearances with the people Naruto was friendly with. Not going to lie, it was hard. Going from a civilian in 21st century America to basically a child soldier? Drastic change. At times, it was an honest struggle to keep going. This was the case mainly with the physical training, as I never had to push myself this hard back on Earth. But I had to do so now. Having a strong, capable body and later on excellent taijutsu skills was the foundation for my goal of being S rank by the time the war starts. Beyond that, thoughts of what awaited me if I wasn't strong enough served as potent motivators. Therefore, I pushed myself and the results can speak for themselves. I progressed up to level 4 with the weights. My accuracy with kunai and shuriken improved. Chakra control skyrocketed, and with that so did proficiency with the Rasengan, substitution, and body flicker. The main ninjutsu that I focused on. I picked up all the chakra theory that was available to me in the library. Advanced control exercises that I couldn't use yet but would be beneficial later. Shinobi tactics, plants and poisons, etiquette. Anything that I believed could be useful. That being said, I noticed a lack of fuinjutsu material. Guess they didn't want untrusted amateurs messing around with seals. Common sense, I guess. Anyways, it was a productive month. As the exterior would suggest, the Hokage's office is actually circular. Walls made of some type of earth with a number of large windows across from the entrance that provide a good view of the village. Along with the few portraits, the only other thing of note is the desk placed in front of the windows. A simple desk that wouldn't look too out of place in a classroom back home. Comes with a stack of books and paperwork as well. All in all, smaller and less decorated than what I would expect out of the personal workplace of a powerful leader. Standing behind and to the left of the desk is Shizun. Dark hair with eyes to match them, fair complexion, and wearing her dark blue kimono with white trimming. White obi around her midsection. Attractive young lady. The only thing detracting from her appearance is the pig in her arms. Fortunately for me, it doesn't stink. At least not from back here. My soon-to-be sole companion, besides Kurama, for the next few years is standing off to the side leaning against the wall with his arms crossed. Dressed in his typical green and red outfit and physically bigger than most people Naruto has seen, he draws the eye. Especially with that white hair and the red birthmarks on his face. Makes me wonder how people get those. I know the Inuzuka clan all have some type of marking on their faces, but so did Rin and obviously Jiraiya. Were they just born with them? And what happens with white hair and aging? Does it start graying? Does it stop being spiky? So many questions. Anime creators, explain. And finally, the lady in charge. The legendary sucker herself. Tsunade Senju. Last of her clan. Best mednin alive. Biggest bust this side of the universe. When I was first introduced to her character, I just applauded the anime for including another attractive female in the cast. Even if it was only a genjutsu. She also became another of Naruto's precious people and was pretty strong. All was fine. But later I really gave it some thought. This was a person who left the village, for personal reasons, and spent the next decade or so drinking and gambling away money she didn't possess. And then all of a sudden, she comes back and is placed as the leader of a militaristic village. Didn't make much sense to me, but I realized that there really weren't better options. No one in Minato's nor Kakashi's generation was strong enough, had the right disposition, and supported enough to be Hokage. That left the two loyal Sannin as the options, and since Jiraiya was there to plead his case, he was able to throw Tsunade under the bus. Throw her to the wolves actually. No buses in this place. It worked out for the best from what I saw. Jiraiya was able to maintain his spy network while Tsunade became the leader and helped the village in the way of creating better mednin. If Konoha started racking up debt behind the scenes, well, it couldn't have been that bad since they never showed it. Currently, she is seated in the only chair in the room behind the desk. Fair skin, blonde hair, brown eyes, diamond-shaped seal on her forehead. Green haori over a gray blouse that looked like it needed additional support to contain her breasts. I'm sure Jiraiya would be the first to volunteer for such a worthy cause. Or maybe he would be on the side for wardrobe malfunction. Those three and I were the only ones present for this send-off, not counting the pig and the umbu I'm sure were stationed around the room. I had already told Naruto's friends that I would be leaving soon but not the exact date, so they were probably out doing whatever they do when off camera. No need for drama today. Just this one stop and then the training montage can begin. The village is going to feel different without you around, brat. I'm grown, thank you. Finally get to enjoy some peace and quiet. Very funny, Granny. I rolled my eyes. Just make sure you don't gamble away the village's budget while I'm gone. Shizun, keep an eye on her please. Of course, Naruto-kun. Stay safe. She didn't even bother to hide her giggles. Both of us ignored the indignant look on Tsunade's face. I'll try. And thank you for the stuff. You're the best. Gave her the guy-style thumbs up. While I did learn a lot from the library, there were certain things that I was unable to find in there. Stuff like the advanced chakra control techniques that the Mednin used, as well as their healing ninjutsu, which I found out was called Iryujutsu. Normally, to learn them you had to start the process to become a medical nin like Sakura, but then I realized that I had inside connections. A trip to the Hokage's office and some expressed interest in the healing arts, and Tsunade pulled some strings for me. I mainly wanted them for improving my control, but learning ways to heal oneself should always be taken. Ah, you're welcome, Naruto-kun. She was smiling now, probably recognizing the joke I was playing and willing to play her part. I'm happy that I could help. I could feel the amusement coming from Jiraiya and the ire rising in Tsunade. Just leave already. Last favor you're ever getting from me. Arms crossed under her chest while mumbling. Annoying, blonde brats. You're blonde too. I decided to have mercy on her. Thank you? I really do appreciate it. I tried to show her how sincere I was through my eyes and face. That was definitely one thing that Naruto always had, a very expressive face. It seemed to work as her eyes became warmer. I know. Make sure you come back in one piece. Maintaining the eye contact, I nodded. I had an idea of what or perhaps whom she was probably seeing in her mind. Jiraiya came around to stand beside me while placing a hand on my shoulder. I'll watch over him, Haim. You had better, pervert, was her response, to which he just laughed and gave a gesture similar to what I had done with Shizen. We'll be back before you know it. Let's go, Naruto. With one last wave goodbye we left. Through the window, of course. My first time doing that. It was much faster than going down all those stairs. We ran along the rooftops and hopped down at the gate to be signed out. It didn't take long, probably due to the presence of the Toad Sage, and then we were off. My journey to the top was finally beginning. 2 months into the trip. I was always a quiet person growing up. In public, that is. At home I could let loose somewhat because I trusted and was familiar with my family. With them I could allow my sarcastic and witty side out. In public, which mostly meant school, I was the quiet and polite kid. I had friends that I talked and joked around with, but with strangers or large crowds I clammed up. Looking back, my introvert nature could be depicted as a bell curve. During my youngest years I was energetic and even bubbly. A little after that and I entered puberty, bringing with it all that awkwardness, and after surviving that phase I came into my own and started to interact with people better. I still appreciated my personal time, but I could be engaging when I felt like it. All this comes to mind as I'm doing my cool-down stretches because of the company I've kept since I left the village. That being Jiraiya and Kurama. Even after agreeing to help me, Kurama doesn't speak much unless I start a conversation. That leaves Jiraiya as the most talkative person here. And talk he does, about women, tips during and after spars, his books, and even about his past at times. As not just the person helping me grow stronger but also my only link to human contact, I appreciate his presence. I may like being alone at times, but I still need that interpersonal aspect. After leaving, Jiraiya took me to a town where he had a contact, and we stayed there for a while, in a camp a little away from the town. Spent the days training and slept in our tents at night. Ate what we hunted supplemented with stuff we bought. It wasn't too bad. Our daily routine, at least for me, consisted of waking up early for physical training and practicing with throwing weapons until noon. After that I would take off the weights and spar with Jiraiya. Soon I plan to throw in some variations into those spars, but at the moment we just focus on taijutsu. The subject after that varied, but we've been covering stealth and tracking recently. All the while my clones are training chakra control and elemental affinities for wind and water. Wind being my natural element, and water because I had plans for it. I also didn't neglect my main ninjutsu, the Rasengan, substitution, and body flicker. Using my fresh perspective and outsider knowledge I plan on pushing the limits of those jutsu. But that comes later. For now, I can do the Rasengan one-handed within 2 seconds. Much better than using 2 hands, but not quite as fast as I want it to be yet. Less than 1 second is what I would consider prime. Adding an element would be the next step. The substitution is seeing a lot of progress. No hand seals, only takes a fraction of a second to do, and slowly increasing range with it. My clones are the best mediums for the jutsu, with them being the same proportions, and having my chakra, and I can replace myself with one almost 20 meters away. With control, chakra usage, and experience being the factors that influence my skill with the jutsu, I can realistically predict even better results in the future. It's going to be one hell of a get-out-of-jail-free card. The body flicker has provided less results, but I have ideas in mind. Stuff like increasing the range, speed at which I can use it, and even using that boost in speed for other purposes besides travel. But that won't become a reality anytime soon. Chakra sensing is an odd experience. It's like using a sense that you didn't grow up with, so then you didn't have any idea how to interpret what you were picking up. Like a blind man suddenly seeing a shirt and not knowing which color to call it unless someone tells him. Using my knowledge of submarines or bats, I visualized detecting chakra as a sonar device. I would send a pulse, and when it bounced off another source of chakra, it would give me a sense of where it was. This was a method I had been messing around with during the evenings with my free time. Pulsing out my chakra had simply been an extension of dispersing a genjutsu. Expanding my senses and looking for the feedback had been a matter of practice. Interpretation a matter of experience. Having a clone run a distance off, and then slowly walking back had allowed me to get a sense of the maximum range. When I first sensed him, I would tell him to stop and then measure how far away he was. 11 meters the first time I did it. A month later and it was about 20 meters. From there, when I picked up a ping in the middle of my position and the end of my mental grid, I could deduce that it was about 10 meters away. That gave me a distance and a sense of which direction it was coming from. Not all that useful with how small the range was, but I had hopes it would improve in time. Made me actually envy that Karen girl. And don't even get me started on her chakra chains. I have no way to replicate those. Annoying nags with all the good genes. Back to my sensing. It lacks a great amount of precision. Something I hope to achieve in time. Good thing I already have clones in my rotation to focus on that. That jutsu is a hack. Sitting in front of my tent focusing outwards, I was able to catch the presence 20 meters out with my eyes closed. Being able to recognize my own clones, by now I could infer that it was someone else. My familiarity with Jiraiya's chakra and the sound of his clown footwear told me who it was. When he walked into our little clearing among the trees, I was standing facing him. "I'm surprised you returned so early. Didn't take long at all," was my sarcastic greeting. He didn't have much to say. Only took a couple of minutes. Okay. Getting a report from his spy. Getting what I asked for. That should not have occupied him for the 4 hours he was out. What did he? There was an emergency at the hot springs. Required my expertise. That was one of my guesses. Found out anything important? Well, this one blonde had one of the biggest assets that I have. There he goes again. Best to let him get it out of his system. Don't blame him though, some of the body proportions in this anime world made flesh were outrageous. I couldn't wait to see them up close. And feel them. Taste as well. And whoa down boy. Just fantasizing up here, no action to partake in yet. Be patient. These boyish hormones keep taking me on roller coaster rides. It's worse this time around because I know just what I'm missing out on. At least acne hasn't found its way into this world. I meant the informant. Cutting him off midway from his pantomime of something bouncing. 2 somethings. Anything sinister lurking around? Nothing too major. Mostly rumors. Here, I got what you asked for. Laying out a storage scroll, he activated it, releasing its contents. Some clothes, sandals, and a belt. Naruto had been one of the shortest among his graduating class. The last checkup I had before leaving the hospital said 146 centimeters in height and 40 kilograms in weight. Either due to a normal growth spurt or intensive workouts, I had grown a little since arriving here. A little bit taller and a slight gain in mass. Enough that the number of baggy tracksuits I had, all in orange, were a little less baggy, and I had to unroll the legs to prevent high waters. They were passable for working out, but not much else. And since I didn't bring any civilian wear, I had nothing else to wear when we passed through any settlements. I didn't feel like putting on a transformation jutsu just to not look fashion blind, so I had Jiraiya purchase some normal stuff while I did my morning training. A couple of black trousers, some white shirts, and a light black jacket. Black pair of sandals. Simple things that won't attract too much attention. The belt is for a different purpose. I had progressed to level 7 of the training weights, 7 out of 10. After reaching and adapting to the max level, I would have no way to add more weight to it. It was not like Lee's weights where he just added more when he wanted to. Mine was a work of Fuinjutsu. Complicated stuff. My answer to that? Having Jiraiya look at it and try to create another seal to use as a training aid. One that had no limits. The new belt would hopefully allow me infinite gains. Retreating into my tent and returning with my own storage scroll, I sealed up the new purchases. Thank you, Jiraiya. No problem, brat. He responded with one of those smiles, eyes closed. You know, I keep meaning to ask you, but how come you use my name now? Not that I miss the nicknames. Looking away from him, I cast my eyes toward the trees while formulating my reasoning. When I first met you, I didn't really have a good impression of you. You acted all weird, and that was after knocking out the guy who was supposed to teach me. And then you threw me into a deep trench instead of teaching me the summoning jutsu properly. And later you took my money even though you should be loaded. Me calling you pervy sage was just to get back at you for all those things and more. Turning back to his face and taking note of his serious expression, I continued. But then you taught me the Rasengan. Disregarding how much fun it was to hit Kabuto with it, I used that jutsu in so many fights. The last of which being against Sasuke. It was my direct counter to his Chidori. So, although I ended up losing, I can honestly say the Rasengan is what kept me in that fight and what kept me alive. In a way, you saved my life. Calling you by name is the least I could do to give you the recognition you deserve. While I'm at it, I would also like to say thank you for all you've taught me so far. Maintaining eye contact as we were, I was able to see the emotions flick across his face. From seriousness, to slight smile, and then a genuine smile. When he finally spoke, I could hear a little extra in his voice. You're welcome, Naruto. We stood there for a moment before he placed a hand on my shoulder. Hey, you still want to get started on learning Fuinjutsu? Of course, I was just waiting on you. That so? With a laugh he motioned for me to sit. Now where to get started? 7.5 months into the trip. No longer do I have a sewer for a mindscape. No, sir. Standing in a clearing, surrounding me is a large forest. Trees and shrubbery, natural greens and browns. Healthy looking. On one end of the forest is a cave leading underground. A huge one at that. The entrance looks like Lady Liberty could walk into it and stretch her arms out and still not touch the edges. Can't make out how far back that cave goes due to light not reaching that far. It would be funny how I don't know my own mind, but Kurama made the executive decisions regarding his adobe. And I can't exactly go visit due to reasons. Back when we first began renovating the gutter this place used to be, I thought the process would be easy. Just imagine a setting and boom. Done. That was not the case. I had to work for it. We had to work for it. Kurama and I had to create the environment piecemeal. So, it took weeks of nightly visits to even get this far. And it was far from perfect. We had one tree copied and pasted to form a forest of trees. Same with a shrub. They were all the same and equidistant from each other. The sky was a plain white color. No sun and no clouds. To reflect nighttime in the real world, it would get dark in here. Dark yet somehow enough visibility to see each other despite having no moon. We made do. I had my clearing and Kurama had his forest to do whatever with in his cave. My clearing was actually the seal. It was inscribed on the ground and kept me from leaving the clearing and Kurama from coming into it. It could actually be seen a prison for me now if I actually lived here. At least my guest likes it better than the actual bars. You're slowly changing. It's quite the strange sight. What, never seen someone going through an existential crisis before? I laughed. No. My previous containers were never in your unique position. Lucky them. It looks worse than it actually feels. I replied, looking down at myself. Over the last couple weeks my mental image had started to shift. Instead of the usual crisp image of me pre-insertion, I looked pixelated. Like someone took a really blurry image. I attributed it to adapting to the body I have now and calling it mine. Not like I had a choice. With all the training I've done so far, I have become quite familiar with my body. My short, boyish body that possessed more power than my young adult one did. More than probably everyone back home. And that's just naturally, not even adding on the usage of chakra reinforcement. That is not the only aspect in which you have changed. You are becoming more powerful every day. He smiled with a mouth full of sharp teeth. Combine that with my power, and we shall annihilate that wretched Uchiha. You already know I'm down for that. What do you think of the arrow step? Give it a name that makes sense. It also has no destructive power. Complete the elemental Rasengan you told me about, and perhaps you might impress me. Huffed Kurama. Humph. It's not meant to be destructive. Just an accessory to my other skills. And the Rasengan variations are put on hold for now. I think this might have some potential. Walking on air might be useful for you humans. A being like me has no need for such frivolities. Wow, talk about disrespect. We can't all be like you, Kurama. Sometimes a non-flashy technique is all you need. And that thing took me a long time to get down. Time ill spent. I just rolled my eyes. I would think someone who fell victim to a little seal would appreciate the finer things in life. Not that I think my new technique is on the level of such advanced Fuinjutsu. The arrow step was basically an extension of chakra control training. You clung to a solid first, then a liquid, the only matter left was gas. Which is what I did. Even if I cheated. Compressing atmospheric air down into a packet, I am able to make it physical enough to create a platform to step on. When it becomes battle-ready, it will allow me a greater degree of maneuverability. Instead of substituting or taking a hit while in the air, I'll be able to move around it. For now, I practice it while tree hopping, running on air platforms instead of tree trunks. For something that basically amounts to air walking, it requires a certain amount of concentration. And this fox is looking down on it. He's lucky I can't go over there and kick his ass. Whatever. I'll show him up someday. I actually came here to talk about the sage and his nishu idea. That certainly caught his attention, if the way he opened his eyes and raised his head to tower over me was an indication. Why? You humans already have ninjutsu, why are you interested in nishu as well? Them humans, but not bringing up that debate at the moment. Honestly, I think it could be useful. From what I remember, nishu was meant to connect people and allow them to understand each other, right? After giving it some thought, I think it probably allows some degree of sensing emotions. Similar to your negative emotion sensing, but more versatile. You're correct on the first part. And that is an interesting inference regarding my ability. But you still haven't truly explained your interest. You already know you will get that ability when we merge. I do know that. But we won't be able to merge for a while yet, and you can only sense negative emotions. I admit that in this world full of backstabbing, deceit, and conspiracies that your ability is really useful, but not all emotions are negative. With a couple more years before I can use your ability and the fact that it is probably only usable while using your chakra shroud, I think having a more diverse sensing ability is for the best. That's why I am interested in nishu. Kurama continued to stare at me for a moment, probably hard in thought. Fine. He responded after a long pause. I don't know if it will give you the empathic capabilities you are after, but I can provide you with what I know of it. Father created nishu to give people a better understanding of themselves and others. Being the precursor to chakra, it was meant to create an era of peace. By connecting one's spiritual energies to another, they could communicate without words and pray for each other. This lasted until the elder brother fell to his insecurities, and Black Zetsu, if you are to be believed, and learned to combine his spiritual and physical energies to create the chakra you all use as weapons today. Spiritual energies? So, this could be labeled a yin release technique? I asked for clarification. Yes. I have to learn to separate the two energies and utilize the yin then. Sounds like I need to put even more emphasis on control then. Maybe break out that scroll Tsunade gave me. And more clones. Meditation too. I thought out loud, volume dropping as I got lost in my mind. Yes, you do that. Later. I have questions about our last conversation. You said your people don't have any chakra or such. How did they manage to explore the seas and even space like they did? And how did they sustain such a large population? Guess I can worry about yin release later. Well, they created these technologies. 1 year into the trip. Using our locked forearms to propel myself away from my opponent, I mold my chakra. Upon landing a dozen meters away, I unleash it. A bullet of compressed air covering the distance in fractions of a second. Speeding to the side, he dodges it and returns fire with actual fire. I reply with a water bullet. Using the steam screen that ensues, multiple clones pop into existence, with all but 4 transforming into kunai that fall into my hands. Leaving 1 clone to spring the trap, 3 accompany me into the air using arrow step. He is usually good at suppressing his presence, but here in this fight where I already had a bead on him, I felt his chakra split into 2 with the smaller pool going dim and almost escaping my radar. But I'm Naruto Uzumaki, the king of using clones. This move wouldn't catch me off guard this close. 2 hands shooting out from beneath my clone proved me correct. They barely had time to grasp his legs before a ball of air destroyed them. Standing on my platform, I saw the arms lose form. Mud clone. Sensing his current location, I send the brace of kunai at him after covering them with air chakra. My clones take off after that to engage in CQC with me trailing behind. Coming out of the quickly dissipating cloud of steam, I see him surrounded by reflected metal. A small cut on his right sleeve and a pair of kunai in hand. Eyes narrow upon seeing my clones, but allows them to approach, which they do after arming themselves. What follows next is a fast-paced exchange of sharp weapons sparking against each other, and clones dispersing. They get a few nicks in, a credit to their skill, speed, and teamwork, but he gets them all in the end. Even the ones that dropped their transformations and attacked him from his blind spots. Seeing my chance as he finishes off the last clone, I speed forward, unleashing a roundhouse kick which he blocks with crossed arms. As he goes skidding back, I push off with a backflip into the air where I use another arrow step to send myself at him again. This time the punch passes over his previous block and strikes his face, sending his already off-balance form flying. Compressing and vibrating chakra, my feet had scarcely touched the ground before I was firing the next jutsu. A water bullet, one with a twist. Still in motion, flying backward, physically dodging was not an option. He could either counterattack with a jutsu or take the hit. He chose to substitute. The piece of wood cracking and letting off steam as the scalding water hit it proves that he chose wisely. Ignoring that, I slowly gazed around the clearing, sending off radar pulses. Getting a ping to my left, I turned that way to see a blur coming my way. I could sense more than see the chakra primed on his left hand. A seal. Probably a chakra restricting one. Past encounters make me aware that I would be a sitting duck if that hit me on exposed skin. Acting quickly, I reached out to my element around me and infused it with my chakra, making it explode outwards and then reeling it in and twisting it while leaping upwards. The burst of wind slowing his charge while the twister that formed wrenched him off his feet, or tried to before he used chakra to cling to the ground. While the dirt and leaves that the wind brought up left him temporarily blinded, I used the wind to rise off the ground and stand atop the small tornado. Funneling chakra to keep the twister raging, I began to fire air bullets at him. Seeing this, he started sliding around on the ground as if it were ice in evasive maneuvers. A moment later, he brought a hand seal to his mouth. Recognizing the tiger seal, I sent the twister his way while expelling wind-attuned chakra from the tenketsu points in my hands and feet, taking off like a discount Iron Man as fast as possible. Even then, I felt the mixing and combustion of air and fire behind me. Finally reaching a safe distance, I cut the flow of chakra and instead form a platform beneath me. Less chakra exhaustive. After allowing the firestorm to die down, I head back down using successive Euro steps. Seeing Jiraiya standing next to scorched earth, I speak up before he can. First of all, I'm counting that as another tie. Secondly, what the hell was that? Sorry. Didn't look like it. I just instinctively matched wind with fire. You have to admit though, the end product looked very formidable. Yeah, you created a firestorm with me right in the middle of it. You're lucky I made it out in time. Ha! He actually looked sheepish at that. I can just imagine what Tsunade would do to me if that seriously hurt you. She would have ripped off little Jiraiya and fed it to you. She probably would too. Don't have to sound so enthusiastic about it. Let's head back. Since someone likes throwing around fire so much, we never sparred near our camp when using jutsu. This session was just another example of why that was a bad idea. Once we arrived, we sat down and broke out the food. It was upon finishing that he began the evaluation. That was a good spar. As always, you made great use of those jutsus you mastered. And that water bullet variation is coming along nicely, almost didn't see the heat coming off it until it got too close. I think it is up to your standards for battle use. You kept the pace fast and were relentless while also thinking ahead regarding both your actions and mine. I'm also particularly impressed by how far you've taken your wind affinity. I can tell that last technique wasn't a set jutsu. In summary, no clear mistakes were made on your part, and you are ready to face other opponents. I'll have Tsunade send us some missions in the area. We might also be able to get them directly from settlements we pass by. Really? About time, been waiting for this. Yes, finally. Chuckling at my fist pump. I had to be sure you could handle yourself. We're not going to be doing any D-rank missions out here, and I won't always be there to help. I know, just looking forward to see where I stand in this world. And I need money too. Do you? There hasn't been much to use it on. And even then, you use my money? He deadpanned. I wave that aside, you're filthy rich. I've seen your writing contract. Besides, I need money to buy new clothes, a set of armor, and some other things. Planning on moving out of that dingy apartment when we return too. Armor, you say? What kind? I'm thinking just a chest plate. Maybe some arm guards. I have some ideas for the latter. I still have my armor from the Shinobi War. But although you're pretty tall for your age, I was older and bigger when I was fitted for them. They won't fit you. Jiraiya shrugged apologetically. That's fine. I want my own after all. I have a contact that is pretty good with that sort of thing. We'll go to him to get your armor. Cool. Now if we're done here, it's Friday afternoon, meaning my rest period starts now. I'll throw on my civilian clothes and we can go into town. To the hot springs we go. Serious Jiraiya is no longer among us. In this dangerous world full of psychopaths, weird hair colors, and even weirder people, there is one thing that makes it bearable. No, it's not the above-average looking women. I still haven't been able to appreciate that properly. The best thing they have here is the hot springs. Natural pools of water heated by the earth itself, possessing minerals that soothe the body and mind. As an Uzumaki and then further compounded by being a Jinchuriki, I heal faster than other people. After a day of working out and shredding muscle fibers, food and a good night's sleep is all I need to bounce back stronger than the day before. A bonus that I've made great use of. At 14 years old, 154 centimeters tall, and cut, defined muscles throughout my whole body, I was quite the sight. And as the routine spars with Jiraiya have shown, it wasn't just for appearances. Self-appreciation aside, I didn't have to come to the springs for rejuvenation. Not like those other people. I came here because I can still enjoy it as the warm water tickles at my body. I found it to be calming. It was also a good location for test subjects. After developing and practicing in-release, empathy for months, I got pretty good with it. With myself as the first subject, I analyzed the readings from what it said I was feeling and matched it with an emotion. Hard to put into words, but different emotions had a different color, for lack of a better word. Making myself think of different topics gave me a list of the most frequent emotions: sadness, happiness, anger, and etc. But even my own emotions got complicated at times, which left me with slight color variations that felt like a certain emotion but not quite. For those I just rounded. After having that for a foundation, I took it into the real world. It helped me flesh out the technique further. I saw what it looked like when people were feeling a mixture of two or more emotions. How fast some people could shift between emotions. How the readings showed intense emotions. The minute changes when a con was selling their lies. After testing single targets, I moved on to groups. Instead of focusing onto one source, I allowed my senses to simply spread out around me. Empathy was similar yet mostly different compared to my chakra radar. It had a quarter of the maximum range and it didn't pulse, it simply flowed outwards until it reached the limit. The drawback of letting it out that far was the information became less specific. I could sense overall emotions of those in range instead of the little fluctuations. Which is what I was doing now while lazing about in the water. The hot springs were small enough, so I got a good reading from everyone present. From the other side of the partition, on the female side, content was the main emotion. And there was curiosity, and a little envy. Maybe some interesting gossip was being shared amongst them. The envy was likely from comparing bodies. Not everyone could be blessed the same, I guess. From the few guys on this side I felt mostly content. In Jiraiya's case, crouching on the wall under his chameleon jutsu while peeping, I got content, surprisingly little lust, and a lot of excitement. Dude was probably getting some inspiration for his next book or something. They're pretty well written for basically smut. Letting everyone else fade into the background, I sunk deeper into the water. Soon I would be putting what I'd learned to the test. I had faith in myself, but I couldn't help but worry about the outcome. Over the past year and change, I had focused on getting my strength and speed to their limits. Practiced with throwing weapons and using them in melee. Drilled my taijutsu. Mastered jutsu that could be done swiftly and without hand seals. And then in spars with Jiraiya I had combined everything into the style of combat that I wanted to have. Striking fast, striking hard, and being efficient. Attacking from blind spots when I can and bringing my overwhelming power to bear when stealth wasn't possible. It was that same efficiency that I feared the outcome of. There would no doubt be killing involved. Matter of fact, I would probably be introduced to it as fast as possible, and it would be the right decision to make. Better to get the first death out of the way in a somewhat safe environment rather than at a critical time. Practical. But was I ready? Ready to take a life? You're not ready. Oh, hadn't realized I was broadcasting my thoughts like that. But I believe you will get through it and overcome it. From what I've seen of your character, when something happens you adapt. You were brought here leaving everything you knew behind, yet you did not crumble. You took the situation and made the best of it. If you can do that back then you will do so again. You may not be ready, you may even stumble after the act, but you will persevere and come out stronger. That is what I believe. Sitting up straight in the hot water, I nodded. That's right. This was always going to happen. Just going to be another hurdle in our path. Just have to take it with my head high and deal with the consequences. Thank you, Kurama, for strengthening my will. Humph, someone had to. I promised myself I would get stronger. This is simply part of that process. I can do this. I can do this and come out stronger. I will do this. I need to. 1 year into the trip. I was right. My first assignment is bandit cleanup. The mission itself did not come from the Hokage. The town council gave it to us when we went to offer our services to them the next day. In fact, they were more than happy to do so. After getting the needed information, I could see why. The target was a small tribe of bandits. Tribe because they were a functional, cohesive bunch that moved around the area doing hit and runs. Strike here, steal resources, and then move on. The fact that they didn't stay in place and had no confirmed kills is probably what allowed them to continue operating until now. It simply wasn't worth the money it would have taken to hire a team of ninjas to deal with them. And it would have taken ninjas to complete this mission because they had 2 of their own in the tribe. Likely low-level chunin from their description. Hence their agreement to hire us. We were capable ninjas, but we would do the job for less than what even a minor shinobi village would charge. A win for both sides involved. They get rid of an annoyance, and I get experience and pay. Their terms: eliminate the 2 shinobi and bring back the chakraless grunts to be sentenced and likely executed or imprisoned. Seemed easy enough. I was already in my current work attire, which was basically what Kakashi wears but in black and without a vest or mask. After checking my weapon pouches and making sure my storage scroll had plenty of ninja wire, I set out. Leaving the town behind, I made my way towards where they were last spotted days ago. I could feel Jiraiya shadowing me about a kilometer behind. I didn't pay him much attention. Leaping through the trees at the pace I had set, it didn't take me long to arrive at a clearing with signs of past activity. Scattered rocks and ash where a fire had been. Indentations in the ground from various feet. They tried, but they weren't successful in wiping away the evidence. Especially the ones that showed in which direction they had left. I followed them on the ground this time since they were so kind as to leave me a trail. Noon came and went, and I was still in pursuit. After some deliberation, I decided to not stop for a break just yet. It was about a few hours later that I finally got a ping on my radar. Slowing down my pace and paying more attention for scouts, I continued to advance. 1 and then 2 small chakra signatures. Small compared to me or even Jiraiya. Compared to the others around them, they might as well have been torches amongst candles. Opting to tree hop as I got closer, I caught my first glimpse of them about 70 meters away. Various tents, a fire with something roasting, and people milling about. With no signatures further out, I knew that these 19 people I sensed made up the entirety of the tribe. Finding a good vantage point, I settled down under the chameleon jutsu with some dry rations to eat. Because I planned on using the stealth approach, nighttime would be the best time to attack. Although common sense would dictate to be even more on guard at night, this bunch had no reason to be overly vigilant, so the cover of darkness would suit me well. It's a little past midnight when I made my move. Using empathy one last time to make sure no one in a tent is conscious, I dropped down from the tree and sneaked towards the sentry at the north side of the camp. From his chakra pool, he is one of the ninjas I'm here to eliminate, and one of the 3 people awake keeping watch. For obvious reasons, he'd be my first target. Have to give credit where it's due. For someone with no idea that there is a hit on his group, he's taking watch duty very seriously. Sneaking among the trees while keeping an eye on him, I don't detect even a touch of boredom on his face or any small movements denoting wanting to be elsewhere. A dedicated one, then? Too bad it wouldn't save him from me. Waiting for one of his periodic scans where he turns his head to look around, I launch a kunai at him. Dashing behind it, I was presented with the graphic sight of the metal tool entering and embedding itself into the side of his head. Catching his body and dragging it behind some trees, I use empathy another time. No signs of alertness. Just one more threat left, and I had already memorized which tent was his. Striding quickly yet quietly through the camp, I stopped in front of the designated tent and observed it. Besides the common traps, seals can also be used to ward off trespassers when set up correctly, and they are much more dangerous. Finding none, I enter the tent to find the ninja snoring away. The lighting is poor in here, but I can make out the slashed grass headband. Same as what the other one wore, perhaps they deserted together. Bracing myself, I reach out with one hand to jerk his chin up and with the other add a slash to his throat to match the one on his forehead protector. Looking down at his rapidly bleeding out corpse, I can't help but feel some complex emotions over doing the deed. But now isn't the time. There are others to take care of. With that in mind and no more ninjas to potentially sense chakra use anymore, I create 5 clones who leave to carry out their purpose. I dragged out the body and set it down at the center of the encampment. It doesn't take long for my clones to knock out the other sentries along with the sleeping bandits. Upon doing so, they bring them to where I stood and began binding their limbs with the wire I brought. Once done, they went back out collecting everything that was of use and storing them into 2 scrolls. While they did that, I went to the trees where I had left the other ninja and returned, placing the body on top of the other. Running through hand seals and feeling my chakra respond almost sluggishly, I set the bodies on fire using the great fireball technique. After only ashes remain, I create more clones, 1 to carry each remaining bandit, and then speed back towards the town. From the first kunai thrown to my departure, less than half an hour had passed. What an eventful night. You did good, were Jiraiya's first words regarding the debrief. Running all night, I had managed to get back by dawn. Leaving the town hall sans bandits and a little bit richer, we had retreated back to our hostel to discuss things. After running all day yesterday, attacking the bandit camp, and then running throughout the night, I was pretty tired. And having shadowed me the whole time, so was Jiraiya. But I'd rather get this out of the way than sleep on it. Picking up and following the trail, observing the camp for the best time to attack, and the attack itself were all well done. You did most of it without using chakra? At my nod he continued, I thought so, only noticed it when the clones came out of the tent. Anyways, the only comment I have is to take out all the sentries first next time. You may have known ahead of time that there were only 2 shinobi and made them a priority, but that may not always be the case. It's best to deal with those on watch and minimize the chances of the alarm being sounded if something is discovered. Understood? Yes. I'll remember that for next time, I affirmed. Good. That was the only suggestion. Now, his look of concern grew more prominent. How are you feeling about your first kills? I feel like a mess at the moment. An uncomfortable blend of many different emotions. I decided to be as honest as possible. It was easier and harder than I expected it to be. But I'm really happy they didn't ask for the death of the others. Bad enough I had to kill the shinobi, doing the same to what amounted to civilians would have been harder. Naruto, as a war veteran and someone who has experienced a lot of what the shinobi world has to offer, I'll be honest with you and say that it gets easier. Not the act of killing, but in the way of living with yourself afterwards. You have to find your reason for what you do during missions. For many it's because they were ordered to and it was their duty, for some it's a way to feed their family, and for others it's to protect their loved ones and their home. My advice to you is to find your own reason for carrying out the tasks in a shinobi's life. A greater purpose to assuage that pain you feel. Recognize that each life you take is precious, but that each violent act can play a part in the creation of something better. Do you understand what I'm asking of you? I find myself staring in shock and even some awe at these words. They're surprisingly eloquent compared to other stuff that I've heard Jiraiya say. But it's not a bad philosophy to live to. One that I would do well to take as my own. Not finding the right words at the moment, all I could do was nod. Do that, and I promise that you will be alright. One more thing, would you say that mission was hard? At the shake of my head in the negative, he continued, as expected. I accepted this one to allow you your first experience in taking a life, not to test your combative abilities. I know that you could take on dozens of ninjas of that level easily even if you hadn't caught them unaware. No, your real test will be more challenging. I will work with Tsunade to assign you an A-ranked missing nin, and you will find and defeat him. Understood? I do, I confirmed. This was a pretty big leap, but not one that I didn't think I was ready for. It might be my first real fight against someone that wasn't Jiraiya. I say might because I didn't plan on attacking anyone face to face unless I had to. I'm a ninja, it's what we do. No need for stupid banter or letting them figure out how to beat me in a drawn-out altercation. We will see how this missing nin fares. I haven't picked one yet, so until then we will continue with our normal routine. Think that's all. I'm going to rest for a little bit, and I think you should do the same. I have some time before I have to meet up with my next source, so we can stay here for another week. Offering one last pat on the back, he went to clean up before retiring to bed. All the while his words of advice bounced around in my head. That week went by peacefully. After that day we checked out, and went back to the clearing where we had stayed and set up the camp again. From there the grind continued, physical training in the morning, sparring with Jiraiya, and meditating in the evenings. Those sessions were dedicated to coming to terms with my emotions and reaffirming my conviction to meeting my goal. The weekend came around again, and I decided it was time I got over myself and stop acting like a monk. And I had the perfect way to do that. Learning from Jiraiya the ridiculously long chain of hand seals for the anti-pregnancy jutsu and donning a slight transformation on my face to add a few years, I was ready to go. My appearance now put me in that range where it was hard to discern a specific age. Could be a mature 17 or a youthful 23. And being tall for my age allowed me to pass myself off as a shorter adult. A fact due to the lower than average height of people here compared to Earth. Strolling along the dirt roads, my head was on a swivel. The social scene around here was not what I was used to. No parties where the ladies would congregate. No clubs where they would go to dance and have fun. No social media. With that being the case, I chose to go looking for them in the way many of my friends used to. Bar hopping. Walking into the second bar I had found, I struck gold. The first thing I had noticed was her butt squashed atop the stool she sat on near the counter. After that was the long black hair falling to her mid-back and the intricate kimono she was wearing. I was interested, but I had to see the other side before I could commit. So I approached her. Sitting in the seat beside her and casting a subtle look, I mentally patted myself on the back. Fair complexion, and while not having any striking features, she was still a pretty woman. She had reminded me of Shizen, with a better butt. But with the hard training kunoichi commit to, it makes sense that you're more likely to find sculpted and powerful figures rather than soft and fleshy. Not that both don't have their benefits. Engaging her with a smile and a compliment on her kimono, I slowly began to chat her up. Learning that she was a seamstress, was celebrating a successful commission, and was single. The flirting ramped up after getting that tidbit. And if her case were to be believed, she didn't mind. Empathy backed that up. One last exchange saw us moving to a different venue. Are you sure you want little old me? There are a couple younger girls who would love a handsome young man like yourself. Coquettish smile on her face. Well, personally, I find older women to be so much more entrancing. A sexy, mature body and real confidence in herself. That's what I see in you and that's what I want. Almost whispering in her ear at this point. If you let me, I want to leave with you. To take you somewhere private and please that sinful body. To bring you to heights you never imagined. To make you scream my name. You only have to consent. Her cheeks flushed with color as she slowly nodded. We went to her modest home and I made good on that promise. I never go back on those after all. Now, finding myself laying in bed with her cuddled to my side still asleep, I was satisfied. Different body in a different world, but the pleasures of sex remained a reliable constant. Although, I don't think I'll experience it too often. This experience shows it's possible to satisfy my bodily urges while on this trip, but since we're not always around civilization, there will be times where I have to tough it out. Just another form of training, I guess. After this trip is over and I've dealt with the Akatsuki, I can look into starting a relationship of some type. Praying for fortitude because I don't plan on starting anything with anyone in the leaf without first talking to Hinata. Seeing how I'm already using duty as an excuse to push it off, it's going to be a long time before that conversation and a long while without. It is what it is. One might think I don't owe anything to Hinata since we never made any promises or even talked about her feelings, but I would feel horrible otherwise. Sleeping with women during the trip is one thing, going back and doing the same where she would be forced to bear with it is another. I'm not going to play the fool, so there is no way to act ignorant of her crush on me without looking and feeling like some kind of jerk. Or a short-sighted teenager. So, don't know what it is I'm going to say, but we have to clear the air somehow. And who knows, maybe starting over as actual friends might lead to something between us. Feeling a shift in the form beside me, I drop that trail of thought and make sure to reapply the transformation. Keeping it up while being busy was hard enough, maintaining the technique while sleeping was impossible. Speaking of jutsu, I think a special thanks should go to the creator of the jutsu I used. If I was back home, I would have had to use a whole box of condoms just during the one night. While here they don't have such protections. The only methods I know of to prevent accidental pregnancy was some tea leaf that women could take at the beginning of their cycle and the jutsu. The jutsu had a version for females and a longer one for males. But I think 34 hand seals is an okay trade to having sex bareback. Turning and running my hand over the curve of her hips, I placed a kiss on her forehead. Good morning, Yua. Good morning to you too, Naruto-kun. She smiled. How are you feeling on the start of such a beautiful day? Great. Had fun last night, I wouldn't say no to a repeat. Is that what you wanted to hear? She asked with a laugh. Can't a man wonder about the health of his lover? I genuinely care. I replied with mock indignation. I know what you were after. And lover, am I? Yup. I know you loved what we did last night. Someone sure seems confident. She challenged. I know where I stand. And if I didn't, your reactions would have clued me in. I responded with a wink, to which she playfully slapped my shoulder. So, what do you have planned for today? I have to open the store soon. Probably in another hour or so. She said, glancing out at the rising sun. Right, you mentioned that. Hey, do you mind if I hang around and look at your products? Of course not, I would love to show you my wares. But you have to buy something though. I'll do you one better, I replied. I want to arrange a commission. Really? She moved around to place her back against the headboard. The new position causing her chest to be exposed to the air, and of course my eyes fixed onto her girls. She only smirked. You would trust me with a commission before seeing if I was worth it? Why not? Sitting up and giving her my attention. Above her neck this time. Based off that kimono you wore yesterday, you have serious skill. And I want to make use of them. Well, thank you, it's my passion in life. So, what are you looking for? She inquired. A cloak. Mainly black with some red thrown in. Should go down to about my knees. I can draw it up later if that would help. I offered. After seeing Naruto in the six-pad sage mode, I knew that black and gold was the move. With the wisps of chakra flowing off of him and the truth-seeking balls in the back. Badass. I didn't have access to that form and might never, but I can copy the basic idea. Due to that, I already had a color scheme for my future armor, but since I didn't plan on wearing that everywhere, I needed another signature. Thus, the cloak. Loosely based on what I remembered him wearing while confronting pain, it would be my go-to. Sounds easy enough, she commented. Cool. Knew I could rely on you. I have yet to make it flatterer, rolling her eyes. It will probably take a few days. Even longer if you want more than one of them. That's to be expected. And I definitely want more than one. A couple made with tough fabric for traveling and then another set for casual wear. I'll be leaving the town soon, but I can come back when they're ready. We can figure out the time frame later. Agreed. Now, I think there's something that we've been neglecting. Her eyes went down to my waistline where the unobstructed view of her breasts had caused a certain reaction. I can get behind that. Or behind you, actually, I affirmed with a grin. Taking the hint for what it was, she pushed the sheets to the side and turned around, placing her hands on the headboard. Taking in the view, all I could think of was how lucky I was. Honestly, to meet a good-looking woman, who was also a seamstress, and also had this great of an ass. Christmas must have followed me here. What are you waiting for? She asked while giving a little wiggle. Hurry up back there. Where do you want it? I knew what I wanted to try again, but better to let her make the decision. Giving me a heated look over her shoulder, she chewed her bottom lip in thought. Where you ended yesterday? She finally picked. That would be exactly what I had in mind. Though I didn't think she would ask for that herself before getting warmed up. I could definitely work with that though. Grabbing myself with my free hand, I guided it to its destination. A lucky man indeed. Walking into our shared room to applause, I ignore his antics and shut the door behind me. My little boy's a man now, proclaims Jiraiya in faux tears. He's went out and had his eyes opened by the wonders of the female persuasion. Pretending to not care about his words externally, I couldn't help but feel accomplished. I crossed that milestone much earlier in this life than my past one. And who doesn't appreciate a good hype man? I'm so proud of you, Naruto. None of my past students took to my teachings as well as you have. Now you can go forth using what I taught you to woo all those lonely hearts throughout the nations. And then you tell me about your adventures to create my next bestseller. Make out paradise, what the heart wants. A man looking for love while roaming the elemental nations. Steamy action galore. The last part is said with his typical laugh. That weird giggle he has going on. Whoa. Hold on there. First of all, you didn't teach me to woo anyone. Secondly, if anyone is writing a book about my sex life, it's me. Not some old man. I state. I didn't have to teach you, you picked it up from me just being around me. I'm that good. His chest puffs up. It didn't work that way. I'm just a natural ladies' man. Yes, it did. And what do you know about writing fine literature? I have to be the one who writes it. Like I said, I'm a natural. And no one is writing erotica about me except me. Get your own muse. Fine, I'll base it off my experiences. Huffed Jiraiya, before his tone changed. So, how was it? It was amazing. Mind-blowing. I replied in the same manner. And get this, she's a seamstress. Ha ha ha, that's what I like to hear. He crowed, extending a fist to me. Recognizing what he was after, I reached out and pumped mine with his. This brought up fond memories of my friends. Hope they're having as much fun as I was. Likely more without me there to slow them down. So, you talked to her about that cloak you wanted? Yeah. She agreed to make them, so I gave her the specifics. I'll have to return here in a couple months or so. Good. I don't mind coming back here again. For now, I'm feeling pretty hungry. Want to go to that restaurant across from us? Heard it's good. He asked, getting up. Sure, I can eat again. 1 year 6 months into the trip. Flying under your own power is one of the greatest sensations in this world. It's fun, convenient for traveling, and can be the best escape route in a pinch. People here should do it more. Like honestly, if that short dude from IWA can do it using an earth jutsu, then it shouldn't be that hard to figure out. Of course, in this case when I say flying, I'm actually aero-stepping some kilometers in the air. Running on air platforms is more chakra efficient than my method of ejecting air from my palms and saws like the late Tony Stark. May he rest in peace. It also allows me the use of my hands for the special binoculars I'd obtained. They allowed me to keep a visual on my target whom I'd been trailing for the past couple days. A missing nin from IWA named Shiroto, no clan affiliation. An A rank with known proficiency in earth and some fire release, he had a bounty of 250,000 Ryo. The reward was decent, but it was not my primary motivation for targeting Shiroto. It was to pass Jiraiya's test. That desire leads to me being even more meticulous in my plan of attack. After leaving the town where Yua lived, we had passed through many other settlements, and sometimes they had something for me to do. Be it carrying a message scroll, seeing to bandit issues, and even being a guard, I had carried out a number of missions. A few weeks ago, Jiraiya had finally decided and sent me out to find Shiroto here. Since then, it took me up until 2 days ago to find his trail and thus him where I had taken to observing him from above where the distance would make him unlikely to detect my presence. And now, I would make my entrance. Palming the 6 kunai I had attached explosive tags to, I cut the flow of chakra beneath me and entered freefall. Adjusting my body, I fell towards him going headfirst at an angle. Ignoring the wind racing by me, I mentally counted down until I hit the optimal distance. Launching the kunai while leveling out of my descent, I watched the weapons fly toward the rogue ninja. They were not on course to hit him, but that hadn't been my intention in the first place. As soon as they had flown into position around him, I triggered the specially made tags. Boom. Standing firmly outside of the blast radius, I waited patiently for him to reveal himself. His chakra presence was easy to discern even inside the dust and smoke, despite how muted it had become. It would seem that he was attempting to play dead. The foreign chakra trying to enter my pathways was further proof. Enough. Flexing my chakra and sending out a gust of air, I dispersed both the genjutsu and the smoke cloud. The explosive tags I had used were more akin to pressure grenades than anything else. Sure, it still had the combustion as expected, but the most dangerous aspect of it was the sheer force it packed. Enough to rupture blood vessels and harm internal organs in a shinobi if caught unaware. And Shiroto had been caught in the middle of 6 of them going off. Which made the sight before me as the cloud was swept away both surprising and then not so. Still in what was ground zero, the missing nin had managed to survive. Down on one knee and bleeding from his visible orifices, there was a certain sheen to his skin that was fading as I watched. Some type of body reinforcement, likely earth-based like Kakuzu's. The fact that he was able to raise his defenses so quickly is commendable. A testament to his abilities. It meant that I would have to personally finish him off. Guess I would be getting that fight after all. I dashed towards him while molding chakra for a hot water bullet. Seeing me approach, he slammed his palms on the ground after running through some seals, raising an earth wall. Launching my jutsu, I leapt into the air and above the wall using consecutive arrow steps which put him in my sight again. Forming a giant Rasengan, I propelled myself off an air platform at him. He jumped away at the last second, causing me to impact the ground, leaving a crater and flying debris. Ignoring that, I body flickered behind his flying body and caught him with a roundhouse to the back, sending him crashing through his earth wall. It felt like I hit a block of metal. He was handy with that defense of his. Going on the offense once again, I reached him after he got back on both feet, and we engaged in taijutsu. It was quickly obvious who was superior in that regard. He was injured, which lowered all his physical attributes while I was still at 100%. His only saving grace was his body armament. With proper warning, he could reinforce his arms to block hits or his critical areas in time to mitigate the blows that landed. Well, if speed was one way to victory, then I had solutions. Deflecting a left hook, I used that hand to grab the back of his neck to introduce his face to a rising knee. Letting him go, I gave him 2 quick strikes to the midsection, a straight to the nose sending him reeling, and then a wind bullet launching him backwards. Whipping out another kunai, an application of chakra saw it multiplying into half a dozen that rapidly overtook his flight. This next part required a high level of concentration, but I had practiced it enough to be battle-ready. Everything seemed to slow down, my focus only on the airborne ninja and kunai. In a flash, I was off. 3 substitutions. 3 rapid-fire strikes. Knife hand to the throat. Upward punch to the lumbar bone. Rasengan to the sternum. The last attack saw us in a situation similar to how we had started, with him in a crater. Except this time, he would not rise again with half his chest shredded. Waiting until the life had left his eyes, I began to clean up. Weakling. That was not a match worth watching, remarked Kurama, breaking the radio's silence. It wasn't. But he can hardly be blamed for that, I responded internally. Taking out a special storage scroll, I unfurled it next to the corpse. Because you attacked while he was unaware. I suppose the credit would go to your proficiency rather than his innate failures. Yeah. I doubt many people expect danger from the heights I can now reach. Very few shinobi can fly. After some maneuvering, the body was sealed away in a puff of smoke. You passed the white-haired one's test. Will you return to him now? He asked. I'll stop by the nearest bounty office first if it is on the way. And then I'll return. Very well. Don't forget our agreement. His mental presence receding from the forefront. Looking around the clearing one last time, I set off. Couldn't help but think over Kurama's words. That fight had been very easy. After the failed assassination attempt, the now dead missing Nin had been off balance during the rest of the encounter. Overwhelming offense had made it hard for him to get any real attacks in, never mind the fact that he was already injured. Can't really call it a fight, more like a beatdown in my favor. And I had no problems with that. Having encounters end that easily is something that I know is unlikely to happen all the time, but I will keep pushing for it. If the possibility for a fatal sneak attack is there, then I can't hesitate to take it. Not with the people I am preparing to fight. People with strong abilities and years' worth of experience in combat over me. Of course, I too had a pretty good hand of cards, but stacking the deck further in my favor doesn't hurt. Work smarter, not harder is a saying for a reason. Turning in the bounty and getting my reward hadn't taken very long. It was a simple process with none of the annoying bureaucracy that one would have expected when dealing with such large sums of money. All the better for me, I suppose. Leaving the center behind and meeting back up with Jiraiya, I had presented him with the evidence of my success and received a pretty lackluster congratulations from him. I found it odd, but a scan of his emotions had revealed a crisis of a sort raging internally. So, I had put my concerns aside for a while and simply went about the rest of the day silently after assuming that he would open up whenever he decided to. It was as we were sitting around the campfire that he finally seemed to reach a resolution. Naruto. Looking up from my half-eaten deer haunch, I quirked my eyebrows at him. I have something to tell you. You've reached a point in your life where you have the strength and maturity to be privy to this information. Especially since it regards you. Oh. This was looking up to be a very interesting talk. And I think I already knew where this was going. It's about your parents. Called it. Your father was Minato Namikaze, the fourth Hokage, and your mother was Kushina Uzumaki, an envoy from the land of whirlpools before it was destroyed. She was also the Ninetales Jinchuriki before you, but that is something that very few people knew. Due to this and the notoriety that your father had gained, they kept their relationship and especially your approaching birth a secret. Not that it helped in the end. The night she gave birth, something happened, and the Ninetales was released. He gained a far-off look in his eyes as he looked back to that day. Probably the worst event in Konoha's history as of yet. It cost him a lot, his student, friends, dreams for the future, but being a shinobi meant enduring, and Jiraiya had. They managed to restrain and seal it into you at the cost of their lives. It was decided after that to keep the identity of your parents a secret to protect you. Both of them had enemies, but Minato was a high-profile shinobi. Any links to him would have put you under extra scrutiny. It could have revealed not only that you were his son, but that you were also the current Jinchuriki, which would have raised your threat assessment even higher. I can tell you more about them later, but before anything else, I want you to know that they both loved you. The months before your birth were some of the happiest for the couple, and there was nothing that they wouldn't have done for you. Even sacrificed their lives to save yours. After that spiel, he took a breath and looked me directly in the eyes before continuing. I would know that, because I was close to your father. Minato was my pupil just as you are now. I saw his as family, and the same was true for him. He even asked me to a surrogate father to you if anything happened to him. To which I agreed, not knowing what was to come. Disaster strikes and he died, leaving you an orphan. And instead of fulfilling my promise, I used my duties and lies about your safety to remain outside the village. All the while drowning my sorrows in drink and women. That is one of my greatest regrets in life, abandoning you to a village that spurned the sacrifice that Minato made. I told myself that it was safer for you, but in the end, it was me running away from what mattered most. I will understand if you never forgive me, but I want to do right by you. I want tea. I'm going to stop you right there, I said while lowering my hand. There is no point in asking for forgiveness. Jiraiya, I hold nothing against you. I've been spending some time thinking about the past and the future I want, and long story short, a lot of things have changed. My dreams are not what they used to be, and the way I approach problems is no longer the same. I'm a different person now with a new perspective on things. So you can rest assured that I am not going to hate you for leaving all those years ago. You have been a good mentor and a friend to me over the time that we've been together, and I want you to know that. You may not be a father figure to me, but we can still be family as well. So stop worrying over stuff like that, you're just adding more years to your face. Still catching my look, he let the matter drop. Thank you. You've really grown, Naruto. I know. At 23 years old mentally, I would find it pretty offensive to have shown no growth and maturity compared to Naruto. And to be honest, the fourth being my father isn't all that surprising. I had already suspected it after connecting some of the dots. It's the identity of my mother that was harder to pinpoint. Thank you for telling me the truth, Jiraiya. No need to thank me. You had a right to that information, and as soon as you were ready, I had no justification for concealing it. And like I said, I knew both of them and can tell you more about their personal lives if you wish. I nodded. I'll take you up on that in the future. After getting that confession of his chest, Jiraiya seemed to have found his appetite again. I really hoped he took my words to heart. Putting my feelings into words had never been my strong point, but a man has to try his best sometimes. Jiraiya had quickly become a close friend to me. All the time spent traveling, training, and just conversing together had elevated him to bro status in my eyes. Making sure he doesn't get killed by pain and finding love in Tsunade were two things that I hoped my presence here would fix. Dude deserved at least that much. Remembering Kurama's last comment, or order basically, I broke the comfortable silence between us. Hey, I plan to start training with the Ninetails chakra soon, I said. You've finally made up your mind? I remember you saying you wanted to prepare before you messed with that. What can I do to help? He replied. After some suggestions about using Kurama's chakra, I had told him I wanted to train my body and mind beforehand to lower the risks of me going out of control. He had accepted my reasoning back then and hadn't brought it up again. Hopefully you can provide me with the key to unlock the seal. I've looked at it, and it appears to have limits in place to prevent me from drawing out too much chakra. I could break them myself, but I figured there was probably a safer method, hence a key. There is a key, but do you really have to unlock it fully? He seemed somewhat hesitant while responding. I had planned to loosen it when you started training, but only a little bit. I don't think going that far so fast is safe. I can handle it. Trust me, I wouldn't suggest so otherwise. Seeing his reluctance dimming, I sweetened the deal, and I don't plan to do it just yet, just wanted to give you advance warning and time to prepare the key if you had it. I was thinking of doing it at the end of this year. Should give me a good amount of time to adapt to it before returning to the village. After deliberating for a while, Jiraiya sighed. Fine. We can do it then. That should give me more than enough time to arrange some precautions. Cool. Soon. 2 years into the trip. Chakra is a powerful thing with diverse abilities. It is defined as a mixture of physical and spiritual energy that everyone possesses. Some people have their chakra system unlocked while most do not. Those who don't are essentially relegated to the bottom of the food chain. In terms of personal power, that is, some of the most influential people in this world are the daimyos and none are chakra users currently. But their power lies in their wealth and authority. Nothing compared to those who found their chakra systems and brought that energy to the forefront, unlocking it for personal usage. That is where the real power lies. Enhanced physical abilities both passively and active, clinging to surfaces, a wide range of ninjutsu and genjutsu. The basic stuff available to every user. Aside from that are abilities gained through mutations of the body and chakra like dojutsus and bloodline limits. But despite the techniques blocked off by genetics or clans guarding them religiously, there are even more that anyone with the requisite chakra control and quantity can use. Some people are fine with specializing in just a few while others go above and beyond. Hiruzen Sarutobi once held the title of God of Shinobi due to his mastery of the shinobi arts, including all 5 of the elemental affinities and all public jutsus from the Hidden Leaf. Kakashi Hatake is called the Copy Ninja for having used his Sharingan to copy over 1,000 jutsu. Orochimaru of the Sannin is famed for having jutsus from all the main elements, as well as several forbidden jutsus. Just those 3 are great examples of what one can achieve with the right mindset and tool in the case of Kakashi. I happen to have both. I want to learn all the techniques I can, and with shadow clones, I can do that faster than most people. Of course, I know that jutsus aren't the end all be all in combat. My style, for example, relies on the speed and power of my taijutsu complemented by ninjutsu I've trained to be Hansio-free and ninja tools. Why bother standing around matching jutsu for jutsu if I don't have to? That mindset is further compounded by the fact that someday I'll be able to go Super Saiyan and end fights before they start with one serious punch. And I already saw what higher levels of taijutsu can accomplish from the Madara vs. Guy fight. But I also know that it is better to have something and not need it than to have the need but not the means. There are times when ninjutsu can be quite useful, like defending a stationary object or person. Or perhaps when range is necessary. Or as a method of crowd control. Completely logical reasoning. The fact that I want to be able to use all of the 5 elements, and perhaps learn to combine them in the future is just an afterthought. Long story short, the last several months had been spent training my lightning, fire, and earth affinities to an adequate level to make better use of the techniques that Jiraiya taught me. Those elements had not been mastered by any means, but that training was paying dividends in chakra economy and proficiency. I may have a lot of chakra available to me, but that is no reason to settle for simply overloading jutsus to make them stronger. Leaving that to my clones, I had personally seen to something more impressive, completing the Rasengan. Twice over since I already had 2 highly trained affinities. The wind variant took me almost no time, only a couple weeks. Which admittedly felt like a while compared to the seemingly short time period in which Canon Naruto managed to make his. I'd like to think that creating the final product with the wind blades and also turning it into a range technique made up for it. And that was without natural energy stabilizing it for me. Once that box had been checked, I moved on to the water-based Rasengan, in which I had put quite a bit of thought. Water is an essential in life. From plants to animals, it sustains us all. We would all die without it. But it can also be deadly in its own right. Nature itself presents us with displacements of large volumes of water which can then lead to tsunamis. High and powerful waves that ripple out from the point of disturbance, and are capable of devastating property damage and death to living creatures. In my world, man learned to harness water in the form of firefighter hoses and water hydrants. Anyone who's seen these can attest to the power that they contain. As for this universe? Well, water jutsus are created and learned for a reason. What these examples have in common are the large amounts of water needed along with the high velocities. My idea for achieving that was simple: create a hollow Rasengan and then fill it with water chakra. That compressed water would then wreak havoc after the shell containing it collapsed. Seemed like a logical thought process. Of course, before even attempting it, a method of delivery had to be chosen. Keeping up with the current theme, if one truly amounts to such, I went with range. But unlike the Rasengan, I had no intentions of throwing it. Tailed beasts don't throw their attacks. They either launched them as balls or consumed and then fired them as a beam. I had no intention of swallowing my Rasengan, but firing it from my hand should be possible. So, I backtracked and learned to launch a normal Rasengan before getting back to the new technique. Starting off with the exterior of a Rasengan, I had poured water chakra into it. I envisioned it like a whirlpool, with all the energy seeping in and then funneling into one point at the center. After forcing in what had to be a full 1% of my chakra, I was left with a super dense Rasengan the size of a baseball. A light blue ball of mass destruction if the new crater in the middle of the forest was any indication. I would remember that scene forever. Standing half a kilometer above the ground, arm tense as the technique was pointed downward. The slight recoil as it was launched and the sound of impact as it hit the forest floor a fraction of a second later. The roar as the condensed water was allowed free into every direction. Trees and shrubs alike swept away. Me dropping down to stand in the middle of the muddy crater that might someday be a large pond. The realization that the new jutsu would be a force to be reckoned with. Something that could reshape the land around it. The following months had been spent fine-tuning it. Although it would likely be the start or finishing move of a fight, the time spent building it up was too much. That was improved along with creating estimates of how much chakra had to go in to get desired outcomes. I made a point not to cause too much damage, but sacrifices had to be made. I'm sure the wildlife would appreciate the new bodies of water. Sitting in front of me is a small scroll. One with the new storage seal that I had designed and relied on Jiraiya to make a reality. After using storage scrolls for so long and seeing how useful they were, I had gotten curious. With the use of Fuinjutsu, people were able to essentially create pocket dimensions that could hold things ranging from simple to complex depending on the design. With the scroll as the medium, the seal acted as a door to that space whenever chakra was applied. My question had been simple: could there be more than one door to that subspace? I hadn't liked the fact that once created, a storage seal could not be easily altered. And if it was ever damaged? Then the contents inside that scroll would be lost forever. That was something most people did not know about storage scrolls, the fact that you don't actually put things into the scroll but instead you anchor a portion of space onto the scroll and then create an entrance and exit to it. The medium, mostly scrolls, determines how big the space will be and what exactly it can hold. The seal plays a part in that too, but the medium is more critical. An example would be how people are used to hold the tailed beasts rather than a scroll. Not only does it not make sense to put one there where it would have little use, but the paper simply couldn't do the job for something of that size and complexity. And Jinchuriki also exemplify how the medium doesn't hold the contents itself. Cutting open my stomach wouldn't reveal Kurama because he isn't in me in that sense but rather a subspace. Going back to the anchor part, a damaged seal no longer works for that function. The space collapses and placing another seal onto the same medium only creates a new space. The original is lost. But if there were two doors to that space, one could be destroyed without effectively losing the contents. Crisis averted. The fact that such a scroll could also be used to send messages between two people had been my selling point to get Jiraiya to help me. I was nowhere near good enough with Fuinjutsu to attempt something like that on my own and hope to succeed. Thankfully, he had been happy to provide aid, and after 3.5 months, we had a working model. 2 scrolls that shared the same subdimension. As long as only one was activated at a time, things could be sealed and then unsealed from either end. That was what I was currently waiting on. Jiraiya had my scroll's counterpart, and would be sending me a signal after his preparations had been made. We would be unlocking the seal today, and rather than do it here, he had enlisted the toads to help, and thus the procedure would take place at Mount Maiboku. He had told me of his plans this morning, and I had told him to go ahead and just give me a warning before having me reverse summoned. We would be spending quite some time there, meaning I had to go procure groceries to last me the duration of my stay. Eating bugs was not something I ever wanted to experience. Movement coming from the scroll grabbed my attention. Part of the seal had activated for a few seconds and then went inert again, meaning that someone had activated the twin scroll. Prodding it with a finger and giving it some chakra, a small piece of paper was expelled. In 30. J. Looks like he was ready. Picking up the scroll and raising to my feet, I wondered what it would feel like being reverse summoned. Perhaps something like the substitution jutsu. As long as you prepared yourself, the transition wasn't all that ample. The scenery suddenly changed. The sky was no longer just white clouds on a blue background. Instead, there seemed to be slight aspects of pink and yellow added on. It was simply so vibrant. The vegetation shifted to mainly tall blades of grass and mushrooms. Those were also full of exotic colors that would have screamed toxic back home. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if someone described this scene as part of their drug-induced hallucination. I always imagined being high would look like this. Minus all the toad paraphernalia. In front of me was a waterfall, made from toad oil rather than water, leading to a fountain in the form of a toad with oil coming out of its mouth. To my sides were numerous statues which I knew to be once living creatures who fell victim to natural energy. Hopefully Jiraiya didn't meet the same end while trying to perfect his sage mode. And on the ground in an indented circle, lied what Jiraiya came here to prepare, and another reminder that facing seal masters on their own turf was usually very foolish. I could make out several things from the seal matrix: a barrier around the boundary of the circle, various parts to drain chakra from whatever was inside the vicinity, paralysis aspects, and more. It likely took forever to link so many functions into one coherent seal. Which I approve of. It meant he definitely wasn't playing around with the seal this time. While I had been appraising the area, the 2 toads there had been doing the same to me. You're right, Jiraiya boy, he looks so much like Minato-chan. Like a clone of him. Minato's looks and, until recently, Kushina's temperament, said Jiraiya with a chuckle. Turning to me, he introduced the 2 toads on his shoulders. Naruto, on my right is Fukasaku-sama and on my left is Shima-sama. They are elders here at MT Maiboku and are above even Gamabunta, the chief toad. Elders, this is Naruto, Minato's son and my current pupil. Welcome, Naruto. We are pleased to finally meet our latest summoner, said Shima. She was relatively small for a toad summon, both of them were actually. But I had no urge to put more thought into the size disparity I had noticed among the toads. Gamakichi was small as a young toad, Gamabunta huge as an adult toad, the elders small as old toads, and the toad sage big as the eldest toad. Doesn't make sense to me at all. That aside, Shima was a pale shade of green with purple hair compared to Fukasaku, and his darker shade and gray hair. Each one was wearing a cloak around their frames. Yes, Naruto boy, it's good to finally see you. Jiraiya speaks highly of you, added Fukasaku. Pleasure to meet you too as well, I responded. I appreciate you helping us with the unlocking procedure. Even if their aid likely wouldn't be needed. Think nothing of it. We'll only be helping Jiraiya maintain sage mode. If something goes wrong, then perhaps we may take a more active role in things, Shima stated. Jiraiya's trump card, huh? I turned to my sensei. You sure that will be enough? Of course. Senjutsu is one of the strongest forces in this world. Should be enough to handle this, he replied immediately. And if it's not, the seal should help to contain you. Sounds good. So, how do we begin? First, we need the key. Through a method that I had forgotten about, Jiraiya went into a gagging fit and regurgitated a new toad. An orange and black one with what looked like a folded accordion connecting the top and bottom half of his body. Wiping his mouth with his sleeve, he addressed the toad. Geratora, if you would. Fine. But know this, he's not ready for such a task. I am only consenting because you won't stop bothering me. With that he rose to his full augmented height and unraveled a scroll. On it was inked a long and complex array of kanji with a simple square box around the center. Honestly, how much time did Minato have to create all of this? First, the seal that was almost custom designed for Naruto to get stronger over time, as well as this key? Dude was either really talented, or he had these measures prepared just in case. Although I feel like the key was added as a concept way later in the series. But I digress. And Jiraiya was beginning to explain what he had in mind. You will be positioned in the center of that seal, Naruto, and Jiraiya will bring the scroll to you. Your only task is to place your hand on that square and accept the key. Jiraiya will quickly leave the seal, and then I will activate the barrier while we wait. If at any point in time we feel something is wrong, I'll also activate the other parts to suppress the Ninetales' power. Got it? Yeah. Let's do this. I responded while already in motion. Taking off the layers on my upper body and getting into the middle of the seal, I beckoned over the storage toad with a hand gesture. After letting him get into position, I channeled chakra to my fingers and placed a hand onto the square. This event had not been something I paid particular attention to while watching the anime, so what happened next was new to me. The kanji on the paper pulsed and then moved in towards my hand and then down my arm and body to my navel. It left an odd sensation down the path it traveled. Almost like a chill. While I watched this happen, I could sense Jiraiya leave the seal and then a hazy wall go up around me. Sitting down on the ground, my conscience went inwards to my mindscape. It hadn't changed much. The forest, clearing, and cave were all still there. The white sky had not changed except for the addition of a ball of light. Functioned as a sun during the day and then a moon at night. This moment has finally arrived, came Kurama's deep voice. Yes. I turned to see him standing just outside the clearing. The moment of truth. Indeed. With a thought, the manifestation of the key appeared on my arm again. And seemingly as if part of a chain reaction, the seal lit up beneath me in the form of interlocking plates in a spiral formation. Slowly, I picked up the front of my top, which had reappeared with me here, to place a hand on the corresponding symbol on my stomach. Here we go, I guess. I rotated my wrist and a clinking sound began. Both seals were becoming undone in a spiral pattern, starting from the inside and spreading out, until there was only a black circle. On the ground, the now unlocked seal flashed before disappearing. I felt the change right away. I heard it too. The roar Kurama let out threatened to deafen me. As it was, only clinging to the floor with chakra kept me from being blown away. I stood my ground as the giant fox approached me. Either the seal had held back a large degree of his aura, or he was purposely channeling it onto me. Despite that, even as he lowered his head to put his snout at my level, I held his gaze without flinching. Something undecipherable flashed across his eyes. 2 years ago, we made a deal. His voice rumbled. To work together in return for 2 things. I had my doubts, but I agreed to the bargain all the same. I remember the day he was talking about with perfect clarity. The day he called me back into the Mindscape with his answer after our initial talk. We had indeed made a deal that day. One that I intend to uphold. But today you have proven that your words hold weight. That you can be trusted. So I'll place my faith in you. Continue to walk along this path, and you will always have my active support. Of course, if you renege, you will face my wrath. But until then, making a fist with his massive hand, he reached out to me. We are partners. I couldn't help but feel some relief as I raised my fist to bump his. Partners. A ripple spread out from our hands. A wave of energy that transformed the mindscape around us. Everything started to look more realistic. The trees lost their copy-paste appearance. The sky became more natural with clouds and an actual sun. There was even the sound of birds and other wildlife. The clearing that had only been meant for me expanded to easily fit Kurama. What we had tried and failed to achieve over a period of months had just occurred in a few seconds. But that's fine though, progress is progress. Kurama's appreciative hum told me he likely agreed. You know, I didn't imagine this to resolve itself so anticlimactically. I began, I thought you would want to test me or something. Seemed like something you would do. Hearing the hesitation, I wrenched my eyes from the new landscape to look at him. You actually plan to fight me? I asked with a laugh. Yes. That was my intention some time ago. Not anymore. What changed? Fighting would have had no benefit. Kurama huffed. You can't truly defeat me in here, and I likely wouldn't have been able to land a meaningful hit on you. True. I nodded my head. Guess I won't have a reason to use the new Rasengan just yet. Perhaps some other time. There was a brief lull in the conversation before he spoke again. Are you not going to deal with that? He asked to my surprise. You can feel it too? Yes, he affirmed. I am even better attuned to you than before. Something like that can't be hidden from me now. Fine. I'll see you later then. Following the connection that had made itself known earlier, I vanished from the Mindscape and appeared somewhere else. The first thing I noticed was how bright it was. The second was the figure already waiting there. Naruto-kun, she whispered as she moved towards me, arms outstretched. She was around my height. With fair skin, violet eyes, and a slender build, she was the picture of a gentle lady. The long red hair was also a nice touch. If you didn't know who Kushina Uzumaki was while she was alive, you wouldn't be blamed for assuming she was a normal housewife. Her white top under the green dress also helped to sell the image. Of course, you would be wrong. Hell hath no fury like Kushina when enraged. Jiraiya had provided me with the inside scoop. Basically, don't piss her off, especially while she's pregnant. You would think that would be common sense. Not to Jiraiya. She's not pregnant right now, but it doesn't make what I have to do soon any less scary. Not quite, was my response. Her eyes, which had been teary with happiness and sadness alike, narrowed in confusion and slowly rising alarm. Kyubi? Not that either, I began. I am Naruto and more. A mixture of my previous self and a transmigrated soul. Dear Kami. She gasped. Are you okay? Was your soul damaged? How did this happen? Each question was rattled off into one barely articulate bunch. Good to see that mothers will be mothers even after death. It's a long story. And even I don't know how it happened. Sitting down on the ground, which looked just like the rest of this place, I patted the space near me. Still with a worried look, she sat right across from me. I went on a critical mission and my opponent landed a fatal attack on me. Instead of dying, I woke up in the hospital with these new memories. I knew they weren't mine from the beginning, but just having them there, it changed my perspective on a lot of things. I didn't even tell any of the villagers this. Consider yourself lucky. Kushina returned my smile with a shaky one. What were the changes? I shrugged. I stopped being so immature is what Jiraiya tells me. He says I used to act like a younger version of you, but now I'm more like my father. Calling him that feels so weird. Like me? What's that old bastard trying to say? Her face became almost as red as her hair. I wasn't immature. His words, not mine. Believe it, I said, channeling the old Naruto. That brought her out of her plans for vengeance. She stared at me with a funny look before bursting into a laugh. You definitely got that from me, you know. I would say it all the time, no matter how hard I tried not to. Trust me, I know. She stared into my eyes for a little while, searching for who knows what. You're really not lying. My son has 2 souls inside him, she said wistfully. I stayed silent. It feels like just moments ago I had baby you in my arms, and now you're almost an adult. So much happened that I wasn't there for. Will never be there for. But you're still my little boy. My son. No matter what. Raising up to her knees, she wrapped her arms around me in the hug that had been interrupted earlier. No matter what. A little uncomfortably, I put my arms around her too. It might sound callous of me, especially to a mother excited to see her son one last time, but I couldn't wait for this part of the conversation to be over. I didn't like playing at being Naruto, but I also didn't want to tell Kushina that her son was long gone. In the end, it meant hugging her back until she finally released me and sat down again. So, 2 souls aside, what was your childhood like? She inquired, to which I had to hold back a wince. Starting off with the hard questions. Well, I won't say I grew up under the best circumstances. Seeing her expression and her opening mouth, I forged on. But there were highlights. I found people who I could rely on, and I'd like to think that's what matters in the end. It took some time, but I'm in a good place at the moment. I've left any regrets behind. I'm so sorry, Naruto-kun. Clasping my hand in hers, Minato and I had known things wouldn't be the best, but we'd had no other choice but to seal the QB inside you. I didn't like seeing her in tears. Even more so because I wasn't the one truly affected by the village's scorn. Don't worry about it. You're not to be blamed for what happened to me, I said, squeezing her hand. No need to apologize to me. While she was wiping her eyes with her free hand, I saw it flicker. It must have meant what I think it did, because all of a sudden, she was back to hugging me. I honestly thought we would have more time. Guess not. Before you go, I said, to which she pulled back to look me in the eye, you likely helped in the creation of the Hiraishin, right? I did. With the more esoteric parts. Are you recreating it? She asked with astonishment. No, I laughed. Me? Working on the Haration right now? If only. But since you are somewhat familiar with it, would you know of any barriers that can prevent the use of space-time techniques like that? Or how to go about creating one? She quirked her head to the side and thought, well, I never created one specifically for that purpose, but… Out in the real world, I opened my eyes. That was quite the experience. And it was actually talking to Kushina that had been the most eventful. Although I had not expected to meet either of the parents due to not being at any risk inside the seal, I was grateful for the information that Kushina gave me. It wasn't a solid plan to restrict the Kamui, but it was a place to start. Add that to my to-do list after returning to the leaf. Slowly getting back to my feet, I looked to where Jiraiya was standing to see him already in his sage mode. With a bulbous nose, amphibian eyes, and facial markings, I could see why he didn't like using it. Shima and Fukasaku were attached to his shoulders, also looking ready to intervene if necessary. I'm in control. I told them, you can lower the barrier. Jiraiya spent a few seconds analyzing me. Probably using the enhanced sensory aspect of Sage mode to detect any traces of Kurama's chakra that could influence me. A moment later he made a hand seal and the hazy wall collapsed. I walked over to put my shirt back on. You were only out for a couple minutes. We had assumed it would take longer, stated Jiraiya. And that there would be a noticeable difference, added Fukasaku. But nothing happened. That's not quite true. I walked over to the edge of the oil pool after getting dressed. You just can't see the difference until I do this. With that, I pulled chakra from Kurama for the first time since waking up in this world. I was able to watch the transformation occur on the surface of the pool. Like I suspected, instead of the initial Kyuubi cloak, we had moved straight into the second form. I had been wearing a black, long-sleeved top and matching pants, but one wouldn't know that now. My upper body was covered in a layer of black with yellow tomo around my neckline. The yellow coloration formed a line from my throat to my stomach where it combined with the black to form concentric circles, a representation of the unlocked seal. My pants and sandals were yellow now with a black line going down the front of each leg. Perhaps the most conspicuous part of the new look, aside from the blazing chakra cloak overall, was the haori that had formed out of nowhere. I could see more tomo on its collar, and knew that there were other designs on the back as well. Aside from a layer of chakra also covering my skin, my face had changed a little. My pupils had become slits, and the whisker marks had thickened. Well, what do you think? I asked my captivated audience. Jiraiya looked stupefied, and the two elders weren't far off. Even Geratora the skeptic had an expression of shock. You still believe Sage Mode is the most powerful force you've come across, Jiraiya? I goaded him. That's impressive, yes. But to assume it's stronger than Senjutsu? Absolutely not, was his comeback after breaking out of the trance. There's only one way to find out, isn't there? I took a step forward, watching his eyes narrow. You've been getting overconfident as of late, Naruto. Perhaps it's time I beat it out of you. He got into his ready stance. Bring it, brat. I moved. I could see his expression of shock as my fist broke through his hasty defense and struck his nose. Watching him rocket off into the weird mushroom forest, I glanced at my chakra-coated hand. There was so much potential in this form, and outside of clones of me, a sage would be the best method of testing exactly what it could do. Good thing I had one handy. Feeling Jiraiya rapidly closing in on my location, I put that thought to the side and got ready to go all out. Shippuden timeline. Niji Hyuga was feeling an emotion that he always went to great lengths to hide from those around him. Uncertainty. All throughout life, he was called a prodigy. The best that the Hyuga clan had produced among his generation. Even if he was only a mere branch member. Success had been the precursor to that title, and after obtaining it, further success became an expectation. The clan, his superiors, his teammates, they all expected the best from him. Some were undoubtedly waiting for him to fail, but others were supportive, and had only the best of intentions. Despite that, Niji couldn't and wouldn't allow any weakness to show on his exterior. It was something he grew up with, and even the lesson he had been taught by someone he would like to call a friend couldn't change that. It was his ninja way. But the fact remained that this mission was turning out to be more formidable than he had expected. First, it was the intense battle against the missing nin from the mist, Kisame Hashigaki. Called the tailless beast due to his vast chakra pools, which he had made great use of. Upon defeating him, Team Guy had discovered that it wasn't even the real rogue ninja, it was a copy. Likely one much inferior to the real threat. That experience had truly opened his unique eyes to the monsters that were S-rank shinobi. People with such strength that they were considered suicide for regular ninja. And there were two more of them that they were expected to fight. Two who had supposedly defeated and captured a kage from one of the 5 main nations. An unsettling prospect. The sight of the multiple-eyed creature on the other side of the rock barrier had further raised his discomfort. It was only the presence of his sensei, and then later the arrival of the copy ninja, that had calmed his nerves somewhat. He also took solace in his teammates, Tsunade's apprentice, and even the representative from Suna. Every little bit would help in the fight to come. After learning of the mechanics behind the 5-seal barrier, and pinpointing the location of the tags, Niji was in the process of equipping the wireless radios that Guy had brought. They were rather useful for circumstances like this. A simple solution to an obstacle that would have barred any team that wasn't composed of 5 Byakugan users. Now if only Lee would stop causing that irksome noise. He needn't have bothered thinking about admonishing him. His still active Byakugan allowed him to catch the next sequence of events and react to them, even if it was too little, too late. Guy-sensei! He shouted in alarm. The cause? The two quickly approaching chakra signatures. With one being so bright it was like looking at a miniature sun. And that was over a kilometer away. A few hundred meters out, and the moving star dimmed in presence along with a drop in speed, but it still landed just outside the group before his last syllable could get out. The second figure was not far behind. Being a Jonin of the Leaf, regardless of how recent that promotion had been, Niji could immediately recognize Jiraiya of the Sannin. The red pigment and the horizontal bar around and in his yellow eyes had not been part of the description, but the overall appearance could only fit one person. If that's Jiraiya, then that means... He turned to the first figure again. The black and yellow armor was certainly new, as was the golden eyes, but the blonde hair and whisker marks gave it away. Naruto? He heard Haruna whisper. He did not blame her for questioning her senses. The sudden appearance and weight of their auras had momentarily robbed him of his higher thinking as well. Such presence. Just how strong are you now, Naruto? Was his thought that went unanswered. Niji would remember what happened next for years to come and credit it for why he threw himself into more rigorous training. Where are they? Naruto had asked with his eyes on the forbidden tag. Niji had thought it was addressed to him, but Jiraiya had responded faster with the coordinates of the 4 other tags. 5 clones had popped into existence and taken off in the required directions while Naruto had created a blue orb of chakra in one hand. At an unseen signal, the clone that had jumped onto the rock entrance tore off the tag and the barrier had fizzled out. 3 things had then happened in consecutive order. Naruto had pointed his palm holding the Rasengan at the wall, and the jutsu had launched itself into it. The clone, who had flipped off the rock face, and Jiraiya both ran into the cave despite the pieces of rock falling down. In one hit, Jiraiya shattered the skull of a blonde ninja sitting on a body while the clone had launched itself at the other bulky figure and decimated it with large fists seemingly made of chakra. Both had exited seconds after running in with the Kazekage on Jiraiya's large shoulder. They had barely passed by Naruto before he had unleashed a jutsu into the cave. The temperature had plummeted before the gust of freezing air even left his mouth, turning the inside of the cave into frozen wasteland. And just like that, the fight had been over. He had barely seen it with his eyes that could see through walls and descending boulders, so he doubted any of the others had any idea what had occurred just then. But from their faces, he had known they were likewise amazed. Naruto and Jiraiya had shared a look before the Sannin had called for a retreat. Everyone had followed, leaving only Naruto standing there, which had confused Niji before his eyes had presented him with the reason. Dashing away, he had paid witness to it all. His friend floating high in the air. The collection of black and white particles that formed a black ball between splayed hands. The technique being fired and the devastation it caused. Leaving no trace of what had once been there, no cave and no bodies. As the dead Kage was resurrected and his villagers came out in full to show their love for him in a heart-touching scene, Niji couldn't find it in himself to really enjoy the positive atmosphere. His mind kept replaying what had transpired. The ease at which 2 S-class shinobi had been utterly defeated. 2 powerful criminals snuffed in seconds. And one of them by a clone of someone who had been around his level just years ago. A clone. After that defeat during the Chunin exams, Niji had started to believe in Naruto's dream of being Hokage. Maybe not right away, because although he had the strength of personality, his physical strength was lacking. But he had seen him easily acquiring that power in a decade or so. Maybe longer. Instead, he seemingly had it right now. In 2.5 years, Naruto had eclipsed the entire Konoha 11. Maybe the entire village. Was there any single person who could contend with someone who could remain out of reach and rain death upon them? Create craters the size of the one he had just seen? Perhaps the loyal Sannin. Was Naruto S-class already? Based on the little he had seen, it was possible. That made him reflect upon himself. What could he do in order to improve? He had and was already doing everything that he could to get stronger. Was he missing something? Perhaps Gai-sensei would have suggestions. And asking Naruto wouldn't hurt either. And thus, having a plan of action, Niji put those thoughts out of his mind. He could worry about that back in Konoha. Suna. I would consider my stay at Empty Mayaboku as time well spent. I had achieved my primary goal, which was fully linking with Kurama as well as learning sage mode. I will admit that becoming a sage was on my list of things to do, but I had been fully willing to push it off if I had to. Luckily for me, I had found the time for both. The abilities of the two modes had some similarities but were distinct. They both enhanced the physical body. The Kurama chakra mode, or KCM, gave more linear speed. From point A to point B, it was faster than sage mode. In return, sage mode allowed for greater understanding of one's body and surroundings, leading to faster reaction times. Strength went to sage mode and stamina was hard to decipher due to either mode having a limit that I could test. KCM came from Kurama while sage energy came from nature. One would take a long time to deplete while the other was infinite as long as I had a way to continuously absorb it. Which I did. Durability went to KCM mode. Regarding extrasensory abilities, KCM provided much greater range and precision to release, empathy, but only for negative emotions. Sage mode improved my chakra sensing by a wide margin. It had greater range, was more precise, and was a passive ability unlike my chakra radar. As an extension of the greater understanding of one's body and environment, sage mode allowed for better situational sensing. Stealth maneuvers against a sage were almost impossible due to these traits. Sage mode was the better enhancement for techniques. It provided both a boost in power along with greater control. A medic nin would benefit greatly from using senjutsu, assuming they had the large chakra pool and strong body to evoke sage mode. KCM only augmented power as it allowed for more chakra to be used. They had other traits unique to each state. Using frog kata, which I was surprised to learn was its actual name, a sage could take the natural energy and surround themselves with it. From there it could be used as an extension of their body to increase the range or power of their strikes. That energy was completely invisible to all senses unless one was also a sage. KCM allowed for the use of chakra limbs. They could essentially come from anywhere on the cloak, which added another degree of unpredictability. They helped close the strength gap that existed between that form and sage mode. And finally, there was the Kurama avatar. Although only the yan half, it was still the full size of Kurama when he was let loose on the Leaf Village, something that Jiraiya and later Gamabunta confirmed. That was one of the reasons I had been happy to unlock the seal and then test my abilities far away from the elemental nations. Keeping something of that size private would have been impossible. And I was all for having secret moves in my back pocket. The training the two forms required had been different. They both added on to my baseline stats, but only one of them gave me perfect understanding of how to make use of that boost in abilities. So, unlike Sage mode, I had to learn to maneuver with KCM. Learn how much effort to exert to get the desired outcome. After that came incorporating all aspects of combat while in the shroud. Upon getting a good grasp of using the chakra cloak, I had moved on to learning to harness senjutsu. Something that Jiraiya had been refining while I was busy. Either due to having me there with him, or just having that span of interrupted time to train, but he made great progress with his Sage mode. The day he was finally able to enter that state by himself with only the standard changes was one to remember. It was interesting to note the difference in the color of the pigment around his eyes compared to Ken and Naruto. His were red, a color already associated with him, while Naruto had orange, a color that he was infamous for. Lead me to think that personal preferences played a role in the final outcome. Until I obtained Sage mode with orange pigment as well. So either preference didn't matter, or I had vestiges of Naruto in me. It was disappointing either way. Casually inferring about the benefit of clones and Sage training had seen Jiraiya passing another benchmark. I was happy that both of us had gotten something out of the trip. In the end, I had managed to stack the two modes to get the best of both worlds. Furthermore, I had been able to control the KCM to the point where I hovered just under the threshold that would bring forth the full shroud. It provided a fraction of the physical enhancements but was more discreet. I only gained the golden eyes from the full transformation. It had no specific name, but I could maintain it as long as I was conscious. I'd like to think it looked like a personal dojutsu. Our departure from Empty Mayaboku had been heartfelt. They were a nice bunch, and their hospitality had been great. I had also gotten the confirmation that Gamakichi and his friends had completed their training and were okay to be summoned. I likely wouldn't need them for battles much, but they were enjoyable to be around. With a month left before Tsunade would expect us to return, we had gone to the capital where Jiraiya introduced me to a craftsman specialized in metalwork, specifically armor. He had seen most of the designs that ninja villages used and was able to give sound advice on what would work. After some compromise, we had settled on something reminiscent of what they wore during the warring era and the Ambu vests. Of course, the color scheme was as I had decided early on during the training trip. A matte black that did a great job of not reflecting any light with golden trim and highlights. It consisted of a plate that covered both of my shoulders, a portion of my upper back and chest, and came with a raised collar. 2 other plates were then used to cover both sides of my torso. Connecting them all were a series of straps made from something that looked like thick ninja wire. One went from the top of the chest plate to the top of the back plate, holding them up over my shoulders. Another was used to hold those plates tight to my body and were connected at the side. The last set were straps that went into my pits and held the shoulder plate down. Due to the way they were positioned, only the ones at my side were visible. Not that any ordinary strike could sever them, they were very durable. In that manner, the 3 separate pieces combined to form one cuirass that didn't limit my range of motion while protecting the essentials. Besides that, I had also gotten a set of vambraces and a new forehead protector. My old one hadn't been damaged, I had simply wanted a different one. It was a replica of Jiraiya's, except it had more prominent horns that pointed straight up and rather than it was engraved with. A rather appropriate act of symbolism that everyone should strive for, not just me. Drawn onto the equipment were a number of seals. They were numerous and had taken quite a bit of time, but being able to anchor seals onto something close at hand was one of the reasons for my purchase of armor. With Sage Mode and KCM in my back pocket, I had natural defense measures for high-level combat where the odds of being injured were present. But the armor provided me with a convenient place to have seals rather than depend on scrolls, which took extra time. So, that whole endeavor may have been a result of my vanity, but I appreciated the appearance and functionality of the get-up, nonetheless. A person had to know when self-reward was appropriate, after all. It was the least I deserved after wrapping up a training trip that had seen me rise from a mere pawn in someone's plan for world domination to a significant player in the game. Because regardless of how much I had known, being weak would have doomed me in the end. But circumstances had changed and thus, fate would be rewritten. We had been making our way back to the Leaf Village when a messenger toad had reverse summoned itself to us. Urgent news had come from Suna, so in an attempt to hasten the process, Tsunade had sent the notice through her summons. From the home of the slugs, it had taken only a few hours to get to empty Maiboku, and from there they simply sent a toad with the message. It was a rather crafty way of communicating between 2 summoners when location was unknown. Our hasty journey had taken us on a path that bypassed Konoha and led directly to Suna, where we had picked up the trail left by Kakashi and the gang. One stop to rest and then another for Jiraiya to summon the clone left behind to gather nature energy, and then we had been in position to blitz in. Honestly, Sasori and Daidara were not the type of ninja that posed a legitimate threat to us. They were the kind that used their special techniques at range, so being landlocked and in a cave with only one exit might as well be sitting ducks. Gaara had already died, but Lady Chiyo had revived him like I had hoped. That possibility had been what I had banked on when I decided to make no mention of sending a 2-way scroll to Tsunade. Fortunately, it worked out. Anyways, after the events of yesterday, it had not been the right time for a proper reunion, so we had made plans to get breakfast before retiring to our rooms. Rooms comprising of an entire floor in the best hotel Suna had. They were a grateful bunch. Or most of them were. Walking down the sand pathways, I was discreetly scanning the people up and about and those still in their homes. At first, I had set out this morning to get the lay of the land and to check out their odd architecture. I had thought it was interesting how they designed their round buildings out of what looked like clay. They likely had earth users who could create more of them as needed. Similar to Konoha and how Yamato could create wooden buildings. But buildings could only hold my attention for so long before the people took it. They seemed friendly enough, with the civilians offering smiles and morning greetings while the few shinobi were more reserved yet still welcoming. Empathy detected traces of wariness and tension hidden under calm exteriors, but that could be attributed to foreign ninjas walking around unmonitored. Nowhere near the results I was expecting from people who had conspired with another village to attack their ally. But they hadn't been given a choice in that, had they? The Kage commanded and they obeyed like the fatalistic patriots they were trained to be. That probably helped in putting the experience behind them. It also hadn't been their home that was invaded. Taking note of the sun's position, I looped back towards the hotel. Across from it was the restaurant we had picked, and since Jiraiya's signature was in there, the others were probably there too. I pushed the cloth entrance aside and yup, everyone was present. "Naruto, over here!" yelled my pink-haired classmate from where they had combined multiple tables to fit the whole group. The 3 actual adults were sitting on one corner talking, which left the teens to converse amongst themselves. "Sorry for the wait. Woke up early to go exploring and lost track of the time," I explained, taking the open seat between Sakura and Niji. Didn't mean to keep you all waiting. It is no problem, Naruto-san. We haven't been here long. Lee spoke up. Good. So, looking around the place for a server, should we get to ordering now? Give me a quick moment to look at the menu. Actually, Naruto, we already ordered. Jiraiya informed me from the adult corner. I picked something that I'm reasonably certain you will like. Steamed rice, miso soup, soybeans, and some water to wash it down. My treat. Sounds good. Thank you. I gave him a nod before turning back to the others. Unlike the adults, they had all changed over the last 2.5 years. All had gotten taller and filled out into proper teenagers. The attire was similar enough to what I remembered from the second part of the series, all customized rather than the usual wear of Chunin and Jonin ninjas. The closest to that standard would be Lee, and that's only because he's wearing a flak jacket over his green tracksuit. Mentally, I changed the possibility of Lee being Guy's son from maybe to likely. That resemblance is uncanny. It's good to see you all again. We haven't had the chance to speak properly until now, so how is everyone doing? Been keeping busy, I would assume? Although I didn't feel the same way about these people as Naruto did, I was still happy to be around familiar faces. There was a sense of nostalgia there. Busy is an understatement. You would not believe how hard Tsunade-sensei has been driving us. Sakura responded. Can't say it wasn't effective, however. Aside from that, I can't really complain. The last few years were good to me. That's what I like to hear. It's not too surprising, really. Tsunade took a girl who knew almost nothing about the medical arts and in 3 years turned her into, not exactly an expert, but something close to it. Makeup Guy was alive because of Sakura after all. How about you three? Actually, do you still go by Team 9? Not anymore, we're all past that now. Tenten replied blithely before mock saluting. Team Guy at your service. Indeed. Nodded Niji. Since every member of our team advanced past Genin, our old team number was inserted back into the cycle. Tenten and Lee are Chunin while I am a Jonin. Jonin? Congratulations, Niji, I always thought you would be one of the first to make it. You and Shikamaru. He just gave me another solemn nod before I turned to the others. Not that making Chunin isn't an accomplishment, you 2 or 3? Sakura? Yeah, I got promoted too, she confirmed. Okay, you, I did have my doubts about, but I'm happy to see you proved them unfounded. Good job. I nudged her arm and smiled to make sure she knew it was a joke. She rolled her eyes but smiled back. But really though, I missed a lot. It was for the best, however. You honestly did. The Pinkette replied with a smirk. I sensed a comeback. Out of our class, you're the only Genin left. Kiba isn't going to let you forget that. Humph, you make it sound as if I spent my time away doing nothing. I scoffed. Let him say something, I'll teach him better. Won't win by farting in his face this time either. I am most curious, Naruto-san, started Lee, polite as always. Stressing over honorifics isn't my thing, but I realize it's a custom here, even among peers, so I don't let it get to me. At least he didn't call me Naruto-kun. Or Chan. I became somewhat accustomed to it at MT Mayaboku, but that's only because the elders are decades older than me and mean well. You are stronger than before, very much so. What tactics did you use to fan the flames of your youth? Funny you should ask that. I leaned back and panned an eye over the group to see everyone watching me. Guess my entrance really caused a stir among them. I followed in your footsteps and placed special emphasis on taijutsu and my physical capabilities. Truly? He looked really excited to have found another taijutsu enthusiast. Can't blame him, as it's a good thing to be skilled in. A ninja's bread and water. And a better base body means my various amps become more potent. Yeah. Lots of spars with Jiraiya and training with weights. Don't know how it compares with your training, but I think it worked well for me. Really well, I would say. But you also learned new jutsu, didn't you? Asked Niji. I had not been aware the Rasengan was a range technique. Assuming I am correct regarding the jutsu you used. Don't forget the jutsu he used to freeze the cave. He didn't have that before he left either. Sakura pointed out. You're right, both of you. I have a few techniques which complement my current fighting style. Not so much the second one, but the Rasengan will always be a favorite. Makes sense. It's a strong technique. What I want to know is where you went during your trip. Anywhere interesting? Despite Tenten's open-ended question, her eyes ran over my forehead protector and my arm guards, which keyed me in as to what she really wanted to know. A lot of places, but most recently the capital. I saw no reason not to answer that bit. Not many ways it could come back to bite me. Jiraiya has a contact there who helped me design and forge the various pieces I'm wearing now and the armor from yesterday. If you're ever there, ask for a smith named Hanisher and tell him I sent you. Might get a discount. We'll keep that in mind. Why infinite? She pressed. That was a good question. My horned forehead protector was based off Jiraiya's, but when it came to what I wanted engraved on it, I ran into a wall. Ideally, it should have been something that I identified with, like how the old pervert chose oil due to his summons having a connection with the substance. I liked the Toad clan, but I certainly wasn't as close to them as my sensei was, so that was a no-go. I already have the Uzumaki patch on my right shoulder, and putting the leaf symbol on it would have made getting a unique protector pointless, so those options were struck off the list. I also considered putting a Rinna Sharingan there purely for the image that horns and a third I would paint, but I ultimately decided that was a bad idea. If certain parties in the know saw that, it would raise questions and make them wary of me. No, it's best if they keep underestimating me. In the end, my mind returned to my goal. The purpose that I had set for myself from the very beginning, to rise to the top and thrive in this world. The more I thought about it, the more obvious it became that reaching S rank was not enough. Not even the upper tier of that class. To really thrive, I needed power. Power that probably hasn't been seen in this land for centuries. My mind had catalogued all the issues I had to deal with: the Akatsuki, Sasuke, Orochimaru, Black Zetsu. Aside from them were potential threats. Madara Uchiha being resurrected and getting his original Rinnegan. Kagaya Otsutsuki, the lady hidden in the moon. And then whatever Kishimoto, or whoever it was, put into Boruto. Following after the war arc means that those antagonists would have to be incredibly powerful to have any meaning to the storyline. Either that or cheats. The problem is that I never took an interest in the sequel to this series aside from the occasional YouTube fight. I would be going in blind. Meaning the only way to ensure victory was to be stronger. To have such overwhelming power that when the time comes, I'd curb stomp my enemies like Madara did to the Shinobi Alliance. But with no real knowledge of what the other horny aliens or ninjas could do, there was no way to know when I had reached their level. So surpassing them and leaving them helplessly outgunned became the only path to success. Hence infinite. It symbolizes a promise I made to myself before I left the village. If I want to be able to face the threats that are after me, I need to strive for constant improvement. To keep getting stronger or risk being killed. These threats, do you mean the Akatsuki by that? The same group that attacked the Kazekage in his own village? Tenten asked tentatively. Was it possible she didn't know? She's a Chunin, meaning she could be more aware of what went on in the leaf, but she's also part of my generation, so perhaps that had something to do with it. Yes. The Akatsuki? A group of S-rank criminals who have made it their goal to hunt down all Jinchuriki and take their tailed beasts. Killing them in the process. I confirmed for her. And then to test my hunch, and I am on their list of targets. I hold inside me the nine-tailed fox that attacked our village years ago. My attention went to Niji after I said that. His impassiveness wasn't just a good poker face, he actually wasn't surprised, unlike Tenten and Lee and to a lesser degree Sakura. Resignation and even pity, but no surprise. Interesting. As long as they are around, I won't be able to exist peacefully. I broke the heavy silence. Either they will come for me like they did with Gaara, or they'll catch me on a mission. Conflict between us is inevitable. So, I decided to prepare myself and take my future into my own hands. Your dedication is admirable, Naruto-san, Lee spoke up after meaningful looks with the other Leaf Nin, but as your comrades we cannot in good faith allow you to bear such a burden alone. And I appreciate that, Lee. Only time will tell just what kind of threats they'll throw at us, but perhaps it's best if we leave that subject to a different setting. I don't want to ruin the light atmosphere. Certainly, Naruto-san. Lee nodded. So, did you decide to pick up a weapon at all? If so, I wouldn't mind having a sparring partner. Thankfully Tenten was there for convenient subject changes. As much as it annoys me, getting some type of primary weapon is one of the few things that were neglected over the training trip. I sigh. I'm a wind user, so any bladed weapon would have been downright deadly in my hands, but there's only so much we could pack into the short amount of time we had. That and the fact that extending myself to cover everything that interested me would have meant sacrificing proficiency in other areas. And Jiraiya doesn't really use swords, so he wouldn't have been a good teacher. Really? I'm a weapons mistress myself. Perhaps I could help you out, some one-on-one training? She offered. Perhaps. But just to clarify, would you be showing me how to properly wield them or how to throw them at my opponents? I couldn't help myself. To my side, Sakura snorted and quickly looked the other way. Tenten's teammates likewise found other things that grabbed their attention. I'm going to pretend you didn't say anything, she said with a glare. Hey, that's a genuine concern, I laughed. Last time I saw you fight, you did exactly that. Against a wind user. I didn't know she was a wind user until it was too late. Besides, that was the past. I would definitely beat that I wear a kimono while fighting fangirl now. That got a little laugh out of me. Guess she wasn't fully over the fan to the back thing. The Sand siblings used to be vicious back in the day. Even the makeup guy. I'm sure you could, I lied, don't really know who would win at this point. And I had originally planned on just paying a sword user to spar with me. But I'll see if I can fit you into my busy schedule 10-10. You make it sound like it would be you doing me the favor. Like you wouldn't benefit from having another moving target? Sensing something, I raised a hand to her. I think the food is coming. Indeed, a couple servers were wheeling over a cart laden with steaming plates. The smell emanating from them made me even hungrier. Nothing beats having hot food prepared for you. Almost nothing. Our stay in Suna had finally come to an end. And because I had friends in high places, the Kazakage and his associates had come to see us off. The rock steps and setting sun created a nice backdrop to touching moment. I suppose this is goodbye, Naruto. More like until next time. I have a feeling we will see each other soon. Stay safe, Gaara. And you as well, he responded, taking my outstretched hand. Make sure to stay in contact. You have no excuse now. Lowering my voice some, and deal with that too. I will, he replied, head dipping just a slight bit to signal he had received the message. I nodded and stepped back, ending the handshake. Well, I'll take my leave now. It's about time Naruto Uzumaki returned to the leaf. Temari, Kankuro, until next time. Bye, Naruto. Farewell. With one last round of goodbyes, we began our trek back home. He should be fine now. Since Shikaku was removed, the Akatsuki had no reason to come back to Suna. None that I knew of, at least. And with a pair of dual end scrolls linked to me and soon Tsunade, Gaara should be able to communicate with us faster in case something does happen. Only time would tell. Good work, teams Guy and Kakashi. I expect written mission reports by noon tomorrow, but for now, you're dismissed. Tsunade commanded the members of the Gaara rescue mission. Falling out of attention, they trickled out of the room. Sending one last look over her shoulder, Sakura closed the door behind her, leaving inside the exact group of people who had been present when I left for the training trip. Moving to stand directly in front of her desk, I compared that day to the present. Not much had changed. Shizen was still wearing her black outfit and standing behind Tsunade. The Hokage looked the same on the exterior. Jiraiya had found the same wall to lean against with arms crossed. The room looked just as underwhelming as last time. I swear, if I ever got swindled into taking that position, I'll rearrange some things. With the squad of clones I would have helping me, we need more space and more seats. The wallpaper would likewise have to go. Hours staring at such dullness would get to even the most work-oriented person. Maybe a personal computer or 4, if they can advance technology that fast? Yeah, that could work. I can see the training had great results. Started Tsunade, bringing an end to my thoughts of ergonomics and office decor. Of course. What were you expecting? The same kid with a bigger raisin gan? I joked. No. I had complete faith in you. She smiled. I'm happy to see it was worth it. It wasn't all me. Although he may be lazy at times, Jiraiya has a lot to offer. He really did. I can't make excuses for his canon counterpart, but this one just needed a slight push and an attentive student to really shine. I can see how he helped produce some of this world's strongest shinobi. That he does, she cast a glance to where he stood, getting a thumbs up in reply. Turning back to me, she pulled 2 things from her drawer and placed them onto her desk. Jiraiya sent me word of your progress and the missions you did. Here, this is well deserved. Catching the sealing scroll and releasing its contents, I held a green flak jacket draped over my arm and a smaller scroll in my hand. Naruto Uzumaki, you are hereby given the rank of Special Jonin and the responsibilities that come with it. Do the village proud. Tsunade declared officially. That scroll has the basics of your new position. I don't think I have to tell you to read it soon, do I? No, you don't. I put the items back into the storage scroll. The jacket would likely remain there as I had no desire to wear it. The manual would be read later. I didn't ask for it, but since you offered, I'll accept this promotion. She snorted, letting go of the Hokage air. Was there any possibility of you turning it down? She asked. Not really. I wouldn't want to be the only genin from my graduating class. Sakura's taunt got to me. And genin were heavily restricted in the departments they could access in the village. This would unlock some doors for me. I'm sure it would have been amusing watching you take the Chunin exams again, she said with a laugh. I could have won big betting on you. I doubt anyone would look at me and then bet against me. I countered. You do have the look of a strong ninja. She agreed and then talked over my response, a bit pretentious but strong nonetheless. Jealousy is not a good look on you, Tsunade. Wiping a hand across my new forehead protector. What's in the other thing? Oh, this is your key to your new apartment. I signed the papers in your name, and used the rest of the money to furnish the space. The address is written down. Thank you. I reached out for the parcel. What about food? A genin team was assigned a D-rank mission to stock your fridge and shelves. I believe it was Konoha Maru's team actually. Perfect. And actually, I have something for you as well. Sending a pulse of chakra into a seal on my left gauntlet, I handed over what came out. A scroll? Wait, one for storage. And blood and chakra identifying elements. Tsunade commented while analyzing it, it's better than a common storage scroll, but why exactly do I need this? Prime it and then I'll tell you. Go on, it's not dangerous. Humph. Doing just that with a drop of blood and a chakra infusion, the ink flashed red and then went back to black. It's done. Good. Now, that seal is something Jiraiya helped me create, I explained. As my spiel came to an end, both Tsunade and Shizen, who had crept forward for a better view, were looking at it with calculating eyes. My lady. Think of the possibilities. We could. I know, Shizen. So simple in concept, yet this could be extremely beneficial to our ninja. She sent a glare at Jiraiya. Why didn't you tell me of this earlier? It's not his fault. I butted in. He helped me, yes, but it wasn't his creation. As such, it was entirely up to me regarding who got to know about. And I decided to keep it close to my chest until I found a way to secure the mechanics behind the seal. No one would be benefiting from my creation for free. Taking in Jiraiya's nervous smile and my unapologetic expression, she huffed before turning back to the scroll. This is connected to the one the Kazekage holds? At my confirmation, she continued, could you make some connected to me on one end but open on the other? I can. I have a system in mind that could work, if you are indeed thinking what I am thinking. Give me a day or so, and I can make you multiple sets. Fine. I have other questions, but I suppose you would want to settle in first. Stop by the hospital tomorrow around midday and then return here. Got it. See you tomorrow. Bye, Shizen. Later, Jiraiya. While heading to the door, I pulled out the parcel with the key and address. Now, where exactly is this place? My first reaction upon walking into my apartment was a positive one. Located in a nicer district with a greater shinobi presence, it was a real upgrade from my old one. The front entrance opened up to the main room with an alcove to the left side where the kitchen was located. A short hallway at the back led to two doors, one was the bathroom and the other the single bedroom. As Tsunade had promised, each area had the appropriate furniture, and the kitchen was well stocked. It still lacked the personal touch to show someone was currently living in it, but it would make quite the bachelor pad. Just needed some decorations. And one more thing. Going about unsealing various scrolls from my arm guards, and then unsealing my belongings from those, I placed everything onto the bed. It wasn't a small quantity: clothes, souvenirs, cooking supplies, and other miscellaneous items. I kept almost everything I owned in seals, which is why I had gone to such lengths to protect them. It just so happened that the method I used had other applications as well. Setting aside my sealing equipment, two shadow clones came into existence and grabbed them. They had the task of adding protections to the apartment. Nothing outrageous like the 5-seal barrier, but convenient all the same. Proximity seals around the door, and windows to detect people who would try to enter the apartment. Privacy seals that aren't public knowledge. These were used in the Hokage's office and other important buildings. They prevented members of the Hyuga clan from gazing through walls at their leisure. Needless to say, they were a well-guarded seal, and only Jiraiya, being my sensei, had given me access to them. Other privacy-oriented seals would be added, but they were of lesser effect. Moving around the room and organizing my belongings, I thought of my plans for the immediate future. The Hokage expected more dual-ended storage seals tomorrow, which was easy to manage with the aid of clones. As long as she provided the scrolls for them. They weren't overly expensive, but I would need a large number as each set required 2 of them. My funds were rather low after my recent expenditures. She also wanted me to get a medical examination before going back onto active duty. Or that was my reasoning for the hospital visit. It was likely, though, my information from years ago needed to be updated for the registrar. Going to see some old faces was on my list of obligations as well, but reunions would be postponed for a while if I couldn't get them done soon. Because in a few days I would have to leave the village for a special rendezvous with some snakes. When I had silenced Sasori before he could expose his secret, it hadn't been because I forgot about his little spy. Rather, it had been because I already knew that I didn't give him a chance to talk about it. The meeting being exactly 10 days after his defeat had made it easier to remember the when. And approaching the where like a multiple-choice exam on a map of the elemental nations had gotten me the Tenchi Bridge. It was the one of two that sounded familiar, and the other one was where Kakashi's life had gotten derailed. So, with the necessary information, there had been no need to allow others to hear about a spy with connections to Orochimaru. Because after seeing how it went down in canon, I had an idea of what following that route would have led to. At my current level, it wouldn't have been too far-fetched for Tsunade to ask me to capture the spy and bring them back. Even if it did turn out to be Kabuto. In fact, depending on the composition of the team, she might have expected for Orochimaru to finally be caught as well. The infamous traitor imprisoned and made to pay for his misdeeds at last. The Leaf would rejoice, and everyone would feel safer. Unfortunately, that's not what I wanted. I wanted them dead. I wanted them out of the picture with no chance of returning. There was a reason why I considered Madara and then Kagaya as potential threats. If I could prevent the resurrection of the ultimate Uchiha, then the war arc was almost guaranteed to not happen. At the least it would be shorter. Kagaya may have been released and used as the big bad guy, but Madara had done most of the legwork. In fact, I have doubts about Naruto and Sasuke being capable of victory because unlike with the Otsutsuki, they would have had to kill Madara to win. Therefore, Madara should not be allowed back. Short of using the Rinnegan, there was one other way people could be brought from the dead in this world, summoning, impure world reincarnation. A kinjutsu that the rogue Sannin had stolen and one which Kabuto would use to great effect in helping Obito fight his war. It's not impossible that others knew how to use it. With Black Zetsu having spied on and manipulated many important figures over the years and Obito having the ability to warp into protected locations. But Zetsu wasn't capable of jutsu on his own and Obito could never be as great with that technique as Kabuto would be. Furthermore, those two were hard to pin down until later on. The snakes, on the other hand, they would essentially be coming to me. Propriety would dictate I go forth to receive them. It was not written in stone that capturing them would end with them escaping again. Rather, the possibility of them being executed for good was there. But the consequences of either one escaping could be disastrous. As such, I would deal with them myself. Besides, it was about time I met the latest reincarnation of Indra. Hinata POV. With deft movements cultivated from experience, she carefully unfolded the paper to reveal the dried pink tulip within. Bit by bit, Hinata gently peeled the plant from the paper and flipped it onto its face. She reached to the side for the special adhesive and applied a few drops to the main part of the flower and the thickest area on the stem. She made sure her fingers were clean before lifting the plant and laying it onto a white canvas and softly pressing it down. Eyes roving and not finding any mistakes, the Hyuga sat back with a smile of satisfaction. It would take a short while to dry out fully, but after that the process would be complete. Another pressed flower to add to her collection, pink tulip for caring and good wishes. Would fit right in with the others, patiently waiting to be gifted to their intended recipient. Someday. Hinata had taken up flower pressing at a young age. Even before the academy provided a lesson regarding the art to all its young kunoichi in training, the Hyuga clan had seen fit to introduce it. Being traditional and elegant, not to mention feminine, the heiress simply had to learn it. Learn it, enjoy it, and be good at it. An appearance had to be kept after all. That's not to say she didn't actually like it. The art became an honest pastime of hers, and finding new flowers to immortalize on canvas became something to look forwards to. It also helped that she had a teammate whose signature partners could point her towards interesting plants. And a classmate who knew flowers and could share their meanings with her. A soft knock on the door drew her attention. Hinata-sama? She recognized that voice. Niji-san? She stood and made her way to the entrance, sliding the door aside to see her cousin. Welcome back. Would you like to come in? I would like that. He accepted her offer with one of those soft smiles she still hadn't gotten accustomed to and stepped into the room. I see you made another. Yes, I had some time for myself. How was the mission? Did it go well? She questioned him as they both sat down. She hadn't seen her cousin for almost 2 weeks because of a mission his team accepted. It had sounded rather simple for a team of their talent, so she'd expected him back much sooner than today. Needless to say, she had worried as the days went by with no sign of his return. It went well, Hinata-sama. Niji responded. She wished he would stop addressing her so formally, but she understood he did it as a way to atone for his treatment of her in the past. Something she has already forgiven him for. We were returning when Hokage-sama sent word for Team Guy to provide assistance to another. Team Kakashi had been assigned to help rescue the Kazekage after his abduction, and seeing as how we were nearby, our team served as support. Abducted? She voiced. He was young, but no one could deny the power Gaara wielded. His chakra reserves and creativity made his stand dangerous to most shinobi, especially in the desert where Suna was located. She was not quite certain just what measures would be required to abduct one like him. Was he recovered? In a fashion, yes. But with further assistance aside from my team. That's also the reason for this visit, in fact. Another smile passed over his lips. It seemed Hokage-sama had informed Naruto-san his friend was in danger, as he and Jiraiya-sama arrived in time to defeat the Akatsuki members. To her mind, Niji may as well have stopped talking halfway through his last sentence. And Naruto-kun? Excited as she was, she almost didn't note the stuttered speech she had been working so hard to eliminate. Naruto-kun was there? He was. Niji indulged her, and went on to relay his last mission and the conversations with her blonde interest. Hinata's mind was abuzz by the end of it. It sounded like his time away had been used to great effect, and she couldn't be happier for him. For so long Naruto-kun had had his sights fixed to the Hokage position, and now he had the means to support his case. He was much closer to his dream than before he left, which was a good thing. So she was definitely happy. But also to a lesser extent worried. Being powerful attracted attention, both good and bad, and it seemed Naruto-kun already had powerful enemies after him. She agreed with Lee-san in this case. The blonde should not have to carry that burden alone. She wouldn't allow that after he'd already endured so much by himself. Determination bubbled within her as it became obvious what she had to do. No one could say Hinata had been lax in her training over the last 2.5 years, yet it was apparent she had to take it further. Reach new heights if she wished to stand beside the one who inspired her so. She may have shied away in the past, and even now lacked the self-confidence to admit her feelings to him, but she could do this at least. And perhaps that newfound strength would lend itself to more personal matters. Konoha. Back in college, I had only a vague idea of what my life would look like at age 25. My student loans would have been paid off, I would have a job that I somewhat enjoyed, and perhaps there would be a steady girlfriend in the picture. Nothing too extravagant, but more than enough to be satisfying. Yeah, I also had dreams of coming up with a big idea and striking it rich, but I knew just how unlikely that was. A source of motivation where all those hallucinations would amount to. Of course, my current reality is even more fantastic than those dreams. Supernatural ninjas? Actual plots for world domination? Being in the very center of it all in a new body? Honestly, it was a lot to chew at times. More so because it was all from an anime I was very familiar with. Makes me question the logistics of it all. Was Kishimoto the creator of this universe? Or was he just viewing the events from Earth? But if he is the god of this unfinished story, as of what I remember of my old life, was he out there adding in details that were twisting the timeline? Would I someday run into something specifically designed to wipe out Naruto in an attempt of character development for Boruto? There was no way to be certain, and thus the best response to those queries was to push them aside and focus on the present. Needless worrying would only stress me out. Leave me with hair like Jiraiya's. Not a good look on me. It's a good thing that this world had some positives to focus on instead. Friends and acquaintances, good food, indoor plumbing, even the amazing view of Konoha right before the sunset as seen from the Hokage monument. The bustling of people living their everyday lives. Some filled with joy while others stewed in malcontent, but each had their own aspirations for the future. Too bad none knew of the storm brewing on the horizon. Oh, there were plenty of experienced veterans familiar with the darkness of the ninja life, but none knew just what was waiting around the corner. And if I got my way, they would never learn of it. I would do my best to ensure that. Not for the leaf per se, even now there are some with lingering animosity towards me, but for the different people I actually cared for and because of how bad the final endgame was. Either stuck in the infinite Tsukuyami or sucked dry of chakra by Kaguya. Both outcomes were undesirable and not something I would allow to happen. My death being a requirement in the two plans simply guaranteed my protest. Anyways, looks like she had finally arrived. Hey Naruto. Greeted my expected guest. Sakura, you're just in time. I waved her over. You've probably grown used to it, but this sight brings back memories for me. No worries there. I'll never get tired of seeing the sunset from up here. I think you picked a great spot to talk. She commented, to which I agreed. It provided a scenic setting along with privacy, one I enjoyed and the other I appreciated when it was available. Privacy could be hard to come by in a hidden village. Sitting down next to me on Minato's head, we spent a few moments in silence before she broke it. So, Shizen told me about your promotion. HHM? Oh, I received it the day we got back. It wasn't a total surprise to me, though, I replied. I'll bet. You and Lord Jiraiya took out those Akatsuki shinobi so easily. You must be at least special jonin by that alone. There's that, but I also figured all the missions I'd done over the past year helped my case. I shrugged. What kind of missions? She inquired. I started with a bandit elimination. Which ones to mention? Afterwards I did some find and retrieve for different clients, intel gathering, escorts, and even bounty hunting. It was an eventful year. Well, no wonder you got promoted. You probably have more experience than a lot of our friends. I can't even imagine what doing missions with you would entail now. More S-rank Nin? She shook her head. I can see why Lady Tsunade didn't reactivate Team 7. Actually, that's because I requested it. Let me explain, I interjected before she could get upset. I want to be able to pursue the Akatsuki, and Tsunade already had the idea of creating squads to hunt them down. So, I figured that with our new communication scrolls, whenever a squad found their trace, I would just head out to meet up with them. Having to bring others along would slow me down. Are you really that fast that Lady Tsunade would allow you to move alone? I am. Besides time and space techniques, I can probably travel long distances faster than anyone alive. With the arrow step I could use my chakra cloak to its fullest without worrying about being seen by people on the ground. Incredible. You really benefited from that trip. I guess I would have been deadweight if we teamed up again, huh? Her good cheer from earlier less visible. No one could realistically be expected to keep up, Sakura. It's not a slight against you. And besides, after 2 months I'll be able to take any type of mission, meaning we could team up even if it wouldn't be an official Team 7 thing. Why 2 months? She asked, no longer as downcast. With the attack on Gaara, we believe that the Akatsuki is mobilizing right now. I go back to active duty next week, and for the following 2 months, I'm on standby in case we get intel of their movements, meaning no missions that go outside our walls. Oh, okay. That seems logical. I'm glad it did, because I had argued my case with that reasoning so I would have time to focus on important stuff rather than on filler missions. As it was, I had barely managed to extend my inactivity period in order to fit in sneaking off to Tenchi Bridge tonight. Enough about that, have you started on what we talked about? I asked with a side glance. Huh? Oh, about the training? Sakura asked, to which I nodded, no. I have no idea where to start, and I haven't seen Kakashi in the 3 days since we got back. Her shoulders sagged. No idea where to start, you say? Well, I've been working on something that should help you. It definitely did so for me. As I said that, a burst of chakra unsealed something from my gauntlet. Despite my hesitations about revealing more about my abilities than I wanted to, there were ways that I could strengthen my allies without giving my enemies too much leverage. This tool was one such method. How many storage seals do you have on those things, Naruto? And what are these for? She asked, picking up a belt from the stack I had deposited on the ground. I don't really need a belt, never mind this many. You remember the training tool I mentioned to Lee? You made more? She asked, looking at them with a more appreciative eye. Yes, ma'am. I made some for you, our old classmates, Team Guy, and even Konohamaru's team. I want you to distribute them, I explained. Really? Thanks, Naruto. These must have taken you a long time to make with how complicated they look. She gushed. I think you forgot what my signature jutsu was, Sakura. I laughed. With a few clones, it hadn't taken over 20 minutes. Right. Those shadow clones are really useful. But still, thank you. You're welcome. And I have some words of guidance if you want to hear it, I offered, looking her straight in the eye. Sure. Taken aback by the sudden intensity, she took a while to respond. I never thought that you of all people would be offering sound advice, but please, anything would help. Okay, I took a moment to gather my thoughts. I think that a great ninja is one that is strong in body and mind. They should be fast, quiet, and efficient. I realize that not all situations allow for these characteristics, but when you make good use of them, conflicts can be ended quicker and more decisively. It's also easier to develop those traits than obtaining powerful jutsus to rely on. You following so far? Yeah. She nodded. Where did she pull that notepad from? Not important. Now what does this look like for you, you're probably wondering. Well, this is what I think. For the most part, you don't need to worry about the mental aspect. I haven't seen you in action, so I can't judge your kunoichi mentality, but I do remember how smart you are. That ability to think will take you far. So, that leaves the physical side of things. You're really good with enhancing your strength with chakra. You will likely get even better with time, but what you can start doing now is raising your baseline strength. That tag should help with that, speed as well. Wear it only when doing physical training and I guarantee results. Especially if you can facilitate muscle repair and strengthening using your medical know-how. That kind of training and my rapid regeneration is one reason for my current strength. The sound of pen on paper could be heard over the general din of the still lively village. Is this how teachers feel when students actually pay attention to them? It's not a bad feeling. There is likely a limit to how far you can push your body in that fashion, but you won't know until you try it. You always need a disclaimer. Through that method, you would be faster, stronger, and better able to react to perceived stimuli. Even if you don't become a frontline fighter, those would benefit you as a medic while avoiding danger. Taking a breath, I forged on. With your good control and intellect, I think you could get even more out of Tsunade's super strength technique. Instead of focusing on attacks only, use it towards movement. By channeling precise bursts of chakra and calculating time and angles, I think you could have your own variant of the body flicker. You probably know better than me if that's physically possible. It might be, she said hesitantly. There would be so many variables to account for, like reinforcing the muscles in the legs and spine and then keeping the body oriented while in motion. Making sure the chakra expelled is focused towards propulsion of the user would be another thing. A clearing of my throat brought her back to reality. It's good to know it isn't a mere pipe dream. Having high speed along with your high damage potential makes for the best combination. The final thing that I remember from your sensei's style is that she lacks ranged attacks or simply doesn't use any. I assume it's the same for you and was thinking ninjutsu could help you there. What's your elemental affinity? Earth. Before you ask, I haven't had the most time to train it with all the training and hospital work I've been doing. She preempted me. That was the expected answer, but not too pleasing. I knew few earth techniques and they all came from Jiraiya's repertoire, not the kind that someone with small reserves and an untrained affinity could reasonably use. Even with great chakra control. Okay. That can be a long-term goal then. I settled. Perhaps later on. My other suggestions are genjutsu and using your ninja tools. Those can supplement your other abilities regarding your lack of range. Overall, I think you should work on your physical training and figuring out that body flicker technique. I hope that provides some clarity. Yeah, it does, making a few last-minute marks before closing the notepad and stowing it away. Thank you, Naruto. I had thought you were being patronizing when you said to expand my skill set, but you just gave me excellent starting points. And the training belt. That will really help, she said with a radiant smile. No problem, Sakura. I may not be able to actually train you at the moment, but I can definitely provide guidance. You are also much easier to help than the others. Yeah, I suppose training a clan shinobi must be challenging. Sakura agreed. The majority of the Konoha 11 were clan kids. Heck, even I came from one, although it could be considered endangered. Anyways, from a young age they had been introduced to the shinobi arts that their clan used and had developed their style around their unique techniques. Some clans hardly restricted their members, the Senju, Uchiha, Uzumaki, Sarutobi, and many more. Everything was open to them. Once upon a time, it would have been very possible to run into one of those members who were proficient in every art. The worst type of ninja to face. On the other hand, were those clans with jutsus or abilities that had been honed over generations and taught to each member. That resulted in capable fighters, yes, but they were also stuck into a predetermined mold. Specifically,